Disclaimer. I am a law student. Any legal information provided is not legal advice. For that, please hire an attorney. Hi. Let's begin with a hypothetical. Let's say that you have a stern father figure. Let's say that this father figure has a daughter that's of dating age, all right? Whatever that age is, depending on what country you're in. Let's say that one day the daughter decides to bring home a date. And let's say that the date that this daughter brings home is, let's say it's like a white guy, all right? And let's say that they all have dinner, the daughter, the father, and the daughter's date. And let's say that during this dinner, the date, the white guy, talks about how he was proudly a participant in Charlottesville and in the Unite the Right event that happened there. All right? And let's say that after dinner, after the date leaves, the father talks to the daughter and says, "You know, that was a very fine person. You know, I think that was just a very fine kid that you brought over here." All right? Now let's say that some time passes and eventually the daughter decides to bring over a different person. Let's say that the daughter decides to bring over a black guy, or really any person of color, but we'll just say for this conversation, a black guy. Let's say that they likewise have dinner. Let's say that they likewise have, like a conversation. They all talk at the dinner table. And let's say that during this conversation, the date talks about how he had been at one of the recent protests about the death of George Floyd. Let's say that the dinner ends and the date leaves, and then the father tells the daughter that he thinks that person is kind of a thug and doesn't want anything to do with him. Question. Based on just these facts alone, with no other context, no other discussions, nothing else from the father, is there enough to be able to make a reasonable inference that the father figure might have some racist leanings? Hey everyone, welcome to the stream. And I decided to really try to push the hypothetical today because I understand that quite recently, Xanderhal and Korviday had their debate, and that's something that we're going to be talking about a little bit later on. I was originally going to start with that, but I don't know when I'm going to be able to get them on. Xanderhal has agreed to come on, so I'm going to be messaging him throughout the night and trying to be flexible. I'm going to be having on Jangles, Sciencelad, to talk about his recent debate with Sargon and a couple other people. But I want to lead off this stream with something that has been very, very, very recent, and that's the death of George Floyd. Right? A lot of people have already seen it. I mean, like, if you aren't familiar, I didn't have a ton of time. I've actually been on a date for it was a very long date. So I've been a little busy last night and today. And so what I'm going to be talking about specifically is more related to Trump's response to some of the things that have been happening. But just to get everyone caught up on the basic facts, George Floyd is a man of color who was recently killed by 4 policemen, or I believe it's 4, where on the phone recording, you can see a policeman taking a knee literally onto the back of his neck while he's on the ground, not struggling, until he just stops moving, stops breathing, and dies. Naturally, a lot has been happening, and this isn't really a surprise to anyone who is like reasonably in the know, right? Riots have been happening all over the country. I was actually talking to the person I was with last night about the fact that there's been, we were almost sort of afraid because like we heard sirens in the city of Baltimore, and we were like wondering, oh shit, is this actually like, are the riots happening here? Now we looked it up and there were some protests, but nothing had developed violent in this city. But obviously it has been in other cities, right? And thank you. And yeah, this has been getting a lot of media attention. Recently, there have been instances of violence, especially I believe there was a protest that eventually that broke into like a Target and ransacked everything from there. There have been some tweets about how like the things that they got from that store have been like reappropriated for like different people to use as like supplies, which is interesting. But we're not going to talk about that so much specifically. What I'm more interested in talking about is probably the most telling response to what's been happening. In case you haven't seen it, our president has been talking a lot about this, right? And we'll be getting into, like, I have like a whole bunch of tabs of like relevant tweets that I want to talk about specifically. But I think that the most interesting thing to say, like the most interesting thing to talk about like right now, is this tweet right here. We'll start with this first one and then we'll read this one so we have the full context. Quote, "I can't stand back and watch this happen to a great American city, Minneapolis. A lack of total leadership. Either the very weak radical left mayor, Jacob Frey, get his act together and bring the city under control, or I will send in the National Guard and get the job done right. ... Notice that the next tweet literally violated the Twitter's rules about glorifying violence. I want to remind everyone. I just want to make sure everyone's aware. Like we all like this is something that we all know logically, but I really just want to process this for a second. This is the president of the United States of America glorifying violence against people of color. Just process that for a second. These thugs are dishonoring the memory of George Floyd, and I won't let that happen. Just spoke to Governor Tim Walz and told him that the military is with him all the way. Any difficulty and we will assume control, but when the looting starts, the shooting starts." Thank you. Does anyone remember what happened in Charlottesville? Does anyone remember the statement that Donald Trump put out? Does anyone remember that? How Donald Trump said that, actually, you know what? Hold on. I want to see if I can pull it up. I was looking for it specifically. I want to see if I can pull this up. Get out of here. I just wanted to.
You're calling the alt-left and white supremacists on the same moral plane.
I'm not putting anybody on a moral plane. What I'm saying is this. You had a group on one side and you had a group on the other, and they came at each other with clubs, and it was vicious, and it was horrible, and it was a horrible thing to watch. But there is another side. There was a group on this side, you can call them the left, or you've just called them the left, that came violently attacking the other group. So you can say what you want, but that's the way it is.
On both sides, so you said there was hatred, there was violence on both sides.
Well, I do think there's blame. Yes, I think there's blame on both sides. You look at both sides. I think there's blame on both sides, and I have no doubt about it, and you don't have any doubt about it either. And if you reported it accurately, you would say.
Nazis started this. They showed up in Charlottesville. They showed up in Charlottesville to protest.
Excuse me, they put themselves down as you, and you had some very bad people in that group. But you also had people that were very fine people on both sides. You had people in that group, excuse me.
Now I'll finish it.
Excuse me, I saw the same pictures as you did. You had people in that group that were there to protest the taking down of, to them, a very, very important statue.
Yeah. It's not great. So returning to this, because I think that's some pretty important context, I just want to be clear to remind everyone. Everyone likes to talk about how Trump is racist. You know, that's something that people throw around, right? I want to be absolutely clear here. When you have two different groups, one that's largely white and promoting white supremacy, and one that's largely black or of people of color and protesting systemic racism, and the president literally uplifts one and pushes down the other, calls one a group of very fine people, and calls the other a group of thugs. I really, I try my best. I do. I try my best to interpret statements in the best faith interpretation possible. This is terrible. This is literally treating one group of people disparately, even though both groups, you can even push it to the furthest and talk about how both groups have committed violence. All right? At Charlottesville, someone fucking died. That's a group of very fine people. And here, you have a group of people who are black, who are protesting racism, and who are apparently thugs. This is literally the definition of disparate treatment. I really want to see, actually, I can't say that. I can't talk about what claims I want to be brought against him because that might be interpreted as giving a legal opinion. But my opinion of him is not great. This is the most interesting tweet, but I want to dig into this because he's tweeted out a little bit more after. I really want to talk about how much he's focusing on how he's framing this discussion and how he continuously condones violence against these people. Quote, "Great job last night at the White House by the U.S. Secret Service. They were not only totally professional, but very cool. I was inside watching every move and couldn't have felt more safe. They let the protesters," interesting how it's in quotes, right? As if he's implying that they're really not, or that they're something else, or that they're different from average protesters. "They let the protesters scream and rant as much as they wanted," totally framing them as reasonable people. "But whenever someone ... got too frisky or out of line, they would quickly come down on them hard, didn't know what hit them. The front line was replaced with fresh agents like magic, big crowd, professionally organized, but nobody came close to breaching the fence. If they had, they would have been greeted with the most vicious dogs and the most ominous weapons I've ever seen." That's when people would have been really badly hurt, at least. Again, I cannot stress, this is the President of the United States glorifying violence against people of color for protesting the death of someone at the hands of police violence. This is about as clear as it gets, folks. The professionally managed so-called protesters at the White House had little to do with the memory of George Floyd. They were just there to cause trouble. The Secret Service handled them easily. Tonight, I understand, is MAGA night at the White House. Can we just talk about how fucking insane this is? Literally, he's taking every single opportunity because at this point, remember, I just want to remind people, let's hold on. Where's trending? Explore. All right. Trump resign now is, hold on. Trump resign now is fucking at the top of trending. All right. Literally, it's been trending. It's been trending since yesterday. All right. He knows that everyone is fucking outraged, completely outraged by this take, by what he's been saying. He understands that what he's doing is wrong, or at least he's understanding that the reaction he's getting from everyone is at least showing him that people in large groups are drastically disagreeing with him, right? Like he's beginning to realize this. And so he just keeps doubling down over and over. They're not actually protesting George Floyd. They're doing something else because what is that thing? I mean, like who knows, but it's not protesting George Floyd. Which is kind of crazy, right? And this is kind of the cherry that I want to finish off with. It's Antifa and the radical left. Don't lay the blame on others. I want to talk about this for a second. I find it very interesting because this happens all the time, right? I mean, like these kinds of shootings are not shootings. These kinds of police killings, like this is all too common in America right now. And every time this happens, somehow people seem to believe that actually there's no issue of systemic racism. Somehow at every single opportunity, we seem to convince ourselves that actually the police aren't bad or, you know, there's no problems with the police, how they are. It's some other thing. And amazingly enough, when people, especially people of color, we're talking primarily about like Black Lives Matter, right? And people who ascribe to that movement. It's just so weird how they seem to get more riled up every time one of these killings happens and nothing has changed and it just keeps happening again. It's almost as if you have a group of people in America who seem to be operating under the understanding that the state or like greater society actually doesn't care about their lives. Almost as if to a lot of people, Black lives don't matter. Weird, isn't it? It's just super weird, super crazy to me. And I'm sorry that I'm being like very flippant about this, but like it's very hard for me to take this seriously and for me to, or not take this, it's very hard for me to take this kind of argument seriously. It's very hard for me to take this kind of argument seriously when literally it's just shifting the blame on who killed that person. That's it. It's just shifting the blame. And somehow he's trying to construe it. And if it's not the specific death, it's everything that came afterwards, the protests, all of the riots, all of that. It's not as a consequence of a police killing, of a state killing of a man that did not call for it whatsoever. But because of Antifa and because of the radical left, there are plenty of problems with the president employing that kind of logic. I want everyone to remember this. All right. That's the most important thing I want to take from this. The other day I saw a tweet on Twitter. Anyway, I saw a tweet that was sort of trending in like trans Twitter, right? I think it was Pop Culture Professor Gang. I'm pretty sure. I can't remember. If you didn't tweet it, well, congrats. You're a good enough person that I think you did. And they tweeted out that it's important for us as the trans community to be able to show as much solidarity to people in the Black community at this time. And I absolutely agree with that, right? What happened is awful. What happened is unquestionably awful. But the thing is, I think everyone fundamentally agrees that it's awful. What people don't agree on is what to do from here. And the most important thing that we can do, at least from my understanding, and mind you, I don't want to speak over people of color. This is just me trying to use my platform to help to the furthest extent I'm able to. If other people want other things, then please let me know. I'm willing to do whatever I need to. I want to help. My sort of 2 cents is that right now what's most important is to make sure that we stand in solidarity with people as people of color, especially like trans people of color who sort of get it from both ends, so to speak, right? And to make sure that this isn't swept under the rug, to make sure that this isn't framed as just like a series of crazy protests organized by Antifa and the radical left, as a lot of unreasonable and just unfounded protests and riots that just kind of came about for no reason because these people are just unreasonable, right? And that's the only reason that they could possibly be protesting to this possible extent. No. Make sure that people remember why this is happening. and make sure that whenever someone tries to talk to you, or you're ever talking to someone and they try to challenge the idea that what's happening right now is not the result of police or systemic racism, challenge that. This is a numbers game. Everything in politics is a numbers game. And so what's most important isn't just like the vast, influencing of society. What's just important is influencing people on an individual level. I'm going to be trying to. You should the same. Thank you. My nose was itching up a storm there. I have to reload my YouTube live streaming page. I have no idea how many people are streaming right now. That was a good video. Upload that probably tomorrow. Yeah. Oh, wow. Hey, almost 50 viewers. Poggers. Trump only thinking about... Yeah, I mean, like, that's really it, right? He literally only cares about himself. There's honestly, like, nothing more beyond that. Now, 1 second. Let me just message, because that went over a lot sooner than I did. The stream might wrap up quickly today. So, I mean, it just depends on how quickly we move through things. I want to get Xanderhal on here, because he said that he would be totally open to doing that. So yeah, let me message Xanderhal real quick and see if he can come on. If not, I'll message Jangles, and then we'll move from there. And in the meantime, I don't know, I can chat with you all for a little bit. I mean, like, if nothing happens, I can just kind of give my thoughts on Korviday and Xanderhal for a little bit. Because I was originally going to talk about that, right? So I can certainly give my thoughts on that before I have either of them on, just, so that people kind of understand where I come from. Because, I mean, with that, I'm in a tough spot because I'm friends with both of those creators, right? Like, I am friends with, like, Korviday and Xanderhal. And it sucks seeing, like, I hate seeing this happen, right? Now, that's not like to take away from the validity of the arguments, and I'll be talking about my thoughts on the specific arguments, but that's definitely something that I want to get into a little bit more in a second. So let's see. That was that. Jangles, come on. Okay. Hey, Cindy. How you doing? All right. Let's see. I don't have anyone for a moment. Let me read some of this. And people were saying that the CNN reporter was arrested, that no amendment was absolute, and this were the same people who said that we should platform fascists because of free speech. Yeah. No, I mean, like, this is very interesting. I know that there's been some talk of Trump trying to repeal, I think it's like Section 230. It's some law. I haven't looked into it specifically, but I know that there's been a lot of conversation about, like, the fact that Trump was censored, right? The fact that Trump was censored by Twitter, which has got to be a little bit of a shock to his ego, right? Definitely, it's a pretty good power play when literally a social media company basically says, hey, we're not going to platform you because, like, you're actually glorifying violence, right? Like, that's pretty hilarious to me. But no, it just kind of goes to show you the validity of the argument, right? Okay. Well, give it another 2 seconds if they do not respond. And I will go ahead and start talking about sort of the ideas, and I can just splice in my stuff. So, Xanderhal and Korviday. This was, a bit of a... It's been a lot, right? It's been a lot. I'm going to give you sort of my initial thoughts right now, because I want to preface everything with just saying this, right? For me, whenever I am engaging with debates between creators who I like. Ultimately, the place where I'm trying to come down on, I'm trying to mediate, right? I'm trying to make everyone friendly. I'm trying to like get over the drama. Like I've said it before and I'll say it again. I'm not a fan of drama. Other people might love drama and that's all well and good. I'm not a fan of drama. Again, like there are so many things that make me very boring as a content creator, right? I'm not like a sexy like anarchist or whatever. I'm not like a I probably identify more like a sock dem or something like that. I probably like there are plenty of things which make me just a very boring, sort of leftist YouTube personality. And this is definitely one of them, right? Like I'm a pragmatist. I want to make sure that people who are advocating for left-leaning policies or platforms are ultimately, to the best of their ability, getting along, right? And I see a lot of what's been happening as very sort of, I don't want to say childish, but we'll get into that. As far as I can tell, there have been sort of two major arguments on both sides, right? They both kind of cut against each creator, and so I'll address them accordingly, right? I'm lawful good. I wouldn't say I'm lawful good. I would not say I'm lawful good, because lawful good is like abiding by the current laws of, I mean, like, I don't know. I guess it depends on how you want to define it, right? I would probably call myself more like neutral good, right? As opposed to like chaotic good. But anyway. So I think that people who watched, the debate unfold, it was interesting, right? It was very interesting for me. I'm not going to pull it up because, like, I mean, I remember it well enough, and, people can always go back and fact check, and I invite people to, and if I say something wrong, then people can feel free to correct me. In the debate, I think that they were both going in with very different expectations, or rather, they had very different plans of attack for how to conduct themselves. Korviday, or actually, let's start with Xanderhal. Xanderhal went in with this expectation, right? This expectation that he was going to be able to confront this person who he would define as like a woke scold, who has been accusing him of like all of these various things on Twitter, right? Whether it was having a sex cult and some of these things like Korviday will dispute having ever said, and I acknowledge that, so I don't want people to assume like me saying this is like an admission of like that fact to be true. I'm just talking about from Xanderhal's perspective. And Xanderhal, expected to basically be able to confront like all of these different allegations and be like, hey, that's not true, or hey, you're misrepresenting me, or hey, like this is a drastic reduction of my argument, right? That's not what happened. What happened was that Korviday went in and focused very, very specifically on the idea of using ableist language, right? And whether or not that's good practice for us as leftist content creators, right? So, that was hard for Xanderhal to deal with, I think. Throughout a lot of the debate, Korviday, and I'm not saying that one necessarily destroyed the other. I know that Korviday posted on Twitter saying that they did, or that they did destroy Xanderhal, which I'll talk about in a second. But Korviday's arguments were very strong, right? And at the end of the day, I feel like they suck very well. Actually, you know what? I'll pull this up. I'll see if I can find it real quick. Because the visual aspect of what happened is more important, I think, than just saying it. And just hold on for a second. If I need to clip the video and I re-upload it, just like fast forward to like when it cuts in the video, then I will. But this is probably important.
As well. That's the other topic.
Oh, am I already here? Hold on. I might already sort of be at this point. This might be it. This might be it.
ability politics, I guess. I'm just arguing that, pragmatically speaking, like, if you want someone to take your criticism, especially a creator, it's probably best to convey it in a way that doesn't seem like it's bad faith. I completely agree with, like, the message behind what you're saying. It's just, I'm talking more about, like, pragmatic, like...
Oh, there was also the fact that someone else named, like, I can't remember who it was, but there was someone who, like, named themselves Xanderhal in this, right? Like, someone who named themselves Xanderhal, like, in his stream chat and began, like, posting, like, troll to whatever. That was fucking terrible. All right. I just want to put out that, like, that's absolutely fucking horrible. And I don't know who this person is, but, like, that is admonishable. All right. Like, that is, you're literally trying to throw a monkey wrench in two people trying to hash out their, like, their individual grievances with one another. That is fucking terrible. I do not have a high opinion of you.
If we're actually trying to get someone to take criticism and internalize
absolutely. And as I've said, I think that some people aren't even trying to get you to take criticism; they just hate you. Do you know what I mean? Like,
yeah, that's not criticism. That's just insulting somebody.
I think, you know, it started. You know, it doesn't just, people don't just hate people, like, do you know what I mean? Like, people don't just come out of the woodwork like,
I mean,
this guy. Like, it starts with something, and then something else happens, and then something else happens, and then they call you a woke, you know, you call them a woke scum cunt or whatever on Twitter, and then something else happens, and then something else happens, and then you start going.
To crush the person that he's debating, so the spectators, the audience, are like, okay, that guy's an idiot. I'm going to come over to this side, right? That's.
So I've always, you know, I heard that. And the thing is that I think that could apply to the...
Done this before.
You know.
Media, like, I don't think that's really right. The idea was that these are people that say that they're fighting for social justice, and it's a little thing.
Pace.
Where is it? You'll notice I'm specifically looking for something in the chat.
It's used in a dismissive manner, especially when it's used, you know, as a kind of interchangeable one with woke skull. It just depends, isn't it? The soft lefties are the ones that agree with you, but who are soft. The woke skulls are the other ones of that same category, but...
The barrage, they may not go after you because they don't know, but any time the Deer Girl comes up as a conversation, you're gonna see your favorite streamer's chat filling up with transphobia and bigotry. I feel like, yeah, whatever. Like, if you guys know what tweet I'm talking about, then you guys...
Vegan, non-binary, something.
Well, there's 3 reasons that I'll block people on Twitter, right? If they're filling up my mentions with things...
Let's, we've spoken quite a lot.
Whenever I do that, my chat's reeing at me.
Oh.
Like I said before, whenever I change my rhetorical strategy, it follows an off-screen, off-stream reconsideration of my rhetorical strategy.
Okay,
Sometimes
so
I make
maybe
big changes like that.
Stream?
Maybe. It depends if you make a enough point for me to mull over.
Okay. So this is the point I wanted to get to. All right, this is the point I wanted to get to. So thank you for sticking with me. Right now, what they are talking about are, like, this is the argument that Korviday made to the viability of using ableist rhetoric, right? Now, what I want people to focus on specifically is the chat at this point, right? Right now, like, this is his, like, is Xanderhal's chat specifically reacting to him trying to defend the use of something like the R slur, right? Like, I want to just let this play a little bit and see what happens, because I definitely took note of it. But pay attention right here to things like, Xanderhal, this isn't good. Xanderhal, your takes today are quite cringe. Lots of this. Pay attention to that.
I did that whenever Salty Ace made a video about me saying that women are thick and how that's objectification. So it's possible. It just seems like when
Just
I
don't
see
do
clips
it.
on Twitter, it's things
Okay,
like
this is actually going really bad.
like,
okay, that's actually... I didn't catch that. That's actually the bad Xanderhal. Do not pay attention to that.
Manipulative, abusive liar, things like that.
I said that you're a liar because you have lied about me. You inferred on a stream that I compared your logo to a swastika, which has never happened.
Oh no, that was a friend of yours. I apologize. That was
Friend of mine?
Xanderhal
chills.
I think their name was Black Magic Bimbo. You were in the same
I don't know
thread.
who
So
that is.
yeah,
I don't know who that is. I'm not friends with people with these
sure.
people.
Xanderhal, stop. I will say that there's actually, I'm noticing this now for the first time, a lot of these names that are saying this are gray, or at least there's a couple of them. Maybe they're trolling, but there are also people who are subscribed to him who are otherwise making the same criticism.
You think I've got this woke skull HQ over here, dude? No, I don't. I promise you. Like,
all right, I got you. Yeah,
Xander,
the
don't
people
fuck
that
this
behave
up
like you on
more.
Twitter tend to sort of mold together. You seem way more reasonable in person than you do on Twitter. You've admitted yourself that you're a bit salty on Twitter.
I am, but that's my internal debate, bro. I thought you'd be up for that. I thought you'd be up for the salt. I threw it at you and you blocked me.
Xanderhal,
Well, I don't think
this is
accusing me of
cringe.
things that aren't true
You're being
is
cringe today,
debate, bro. You said
Xanderhal.
that you were defending thought slime.
Xanderhal using capital I to replace L, deleting.
Oh, no.
Fuck.
Wait, we're not going to talk. I know what you said about said Chud Logic. I'm not going to bring up the person who made the accusation, but I will say.
Xanderhal, reconsider the ableist language. Xanderhal, stop, babe.
No, you
Korviday is
made a
doing
damning
great
accusation on Twitter
rhetorically.
that I think is probably pressing to discuss.
I deleted it. I
deleted it?
apologized to the person. Yes, I have.
All right.
I apologized to the person involved, and I think.
Okay. That basically got what I wanted to. Otherwise, essentially the rest of the argument can be boiled down to this, right? Because I understand where both parties are coming from. I get that, because I think that something that a lot of people argue and that isn't really as effective is whether or not the ableist language is harmful to people, like a harmful kind of rhetoric to employ. I actually think that both parties sort of get this idea, right? Like, I remember, like, I feel like both parties, like, sort of understand that there is, like, an implicit harm to some degree that is, and that comes into play when you use ableist language as a way to platform yourself, right? I think that both of them sort of get this. What I think they differ on is essentially in a cost-benefit analysis, when you measure the two things against each other, the harm of using that language versus the utility or benefit of using it, I think that's where the more important distinction is. Because I think that Xanderhal, and again, for me, I'll just say that my personal position on this is to not use that language out of principle. I don't. And so, like, when people, so I will make the caveat here that if someone asks me, like, about my position on Xanderhal using ableist language and they're like, hey, do you agree with that? I'll be like, no, fuck not. Like, absolutely not. I don't agree with it. I'll never do that. That's something that is indefensible, right? I'm not talking necessarily about whether or not it's defendable, because that conversation has been had into the dirt. What I'm talking about more is about how to convince Xanderhal to not use it, because I think that the conversation that a lot of people have been having is just goes to, like, the first question of whether or not it's something which is harmful to like disabled or marginalized people. And I think that we're all on the same page on that. It's more a question about whether or not the utility of using that sort of language outweighs the possible costs of it. And that's what I want to talk about specifically. I think that the best evidence to go against this is Xanderhal's own chat, right? As I was watching this, that was something that I noticed immediately. His fans don't like this content. His fans don't like it. And I understand that. And Xanderhal, if you watch, and like if you come on later, I would love to talk about this more specifically, because this is a conversation that we probably need to have. And mind you, this is sort of like right now, I understand that you have criticisms of Korviday and how they've handled themselves, and that's sort of separate, and I'm putting that on the shelf because I want to focus on this for the moment. I don't think that there's that much benefit to use this sort of language. And I understand that you have it sort of construed in your mind that there is a benefit to it. Like, I get that's where you're coming from, but just based on your own audience, like, they don't agree with this. And I understand that, like, yeah, this is very similar to the rhetoric that Destiny uses. And I understand that Vosh says this as well, right? But that doesn't make it right. And that doesn't mean that people who watch you are going to want the same things that they want from them. Clearly, you're going to have a different audience from Destiny. And you do have a different audience from Vosh. For as similar as you are in a lot of respects, you are different. And this is a way where, honestly, you could probably be different for the better. One thing I really want to wonder about, because usually you make the argument. You made the argument here, right? Wait, Xanderhal already conceded? Okay, then yeah. If he already conceded to this, if he's already not doing this, I watched a little bit about his reconsideration video. If he's not going to do that, then great. Maybe this might all be a moot point then. This might all very well be a moot point. But just my first thought about whether or not it's useful. And again, like, if he's already conceded this, then I guess that this is sort of like a meaningless, like, this is, in the law, we would call it dicta, right? It's part of an opinion that ultimately doesn't matter, but I think it's important for including, because, damn it, I thought about it, so I want to include it here. And really, if it doesn't apply to Xanderhal, it could apply to someone like Vosh, per se. So Vosh, if you want this, consider it. I would love to see, like, a Twitter poll for how, like, just to see the raw numbers of how many people who follow you actually followed you specifically, very, very specifically, about whether or, like, by virtue of the fact of whether or not you said the R slur in, like, a stream or a video. I would be really interested in that, because my first gut feeling, right, and this is an argument I made before, right? Hold on, I need to read this because this is interesting. He said he did with the follow-up video. He said he did consider talking to Korviday after the stream, but from what I can remember, Korviday left Xanderhal and Reed, and something happened on Twitter. Yeah, all right, I did see that. So then I'll put a pin on this, all right? If Xanderhal is still, like, muddling around with this idea a little bit, like, this is something I think is good to consider, and we'll talk about Korviday in a second. I would really like to see a poll on Twitter to the effect of how many people who follow them actually followed them specifically because they said like the R slur in a stream, right? Or in a video or whatever. Because my intuition, my gut feeling is that honestly, this is something which matters a lot less in the grand scheme of things and something which might actually prevent him from getting more people to follow him than not. When people begin to follow more leftist content creators, usually that comes with a recognition that there are certain types of speech which are implicitly harmful to people online, right? This is probably the difference between someone who identifies as like a classical liberal who think that platforming any idea is fine as long as for intellectual discussion, versus someone who's more leftist, where we realize that like actually platforming certain ideas does carry an inherent risk of harming certain marginalized groups, especially if done sloppily and especially if not challenged, right? This is something that I think I see in a lot, like in myself and a lot of my audience, right? Y'all are good people. Good job on being good people. But specifically, I want to just consider the idea that people might have gone to start watch someone like Xanderhal. And maybe they do have an edgy leaning. And maybe, you know, they very well might still have like a very edgy gamer bro sort of vibe about them, right? But it's not necessarily because he said like one word in one video about like one topic, right? And this isn't me trying to like police people, right? Mind you, I'm not trying to come on this as like the free speech police, right? I'm just talking pragmatically. Pragmatically, from a strategy, from a pure cost benefit perspective. Is it really, like considering all the harm that using that rhetoric sort of does, considering all the harm that it does, is it really worth the maybe few couple people you might get for using a word? I don't think so. I really don't. And that's why, now mind you, that might change. Like, let's say that, you know, Xanderhal posted like a Twitter poll and like an overwhelming majority of his followers were like, yeah, we followed him specifically, very specifically, because he said the R slur in one of his videos or streams. That might be a different story. I still wouldn't condone it, but I would be able to see better where he's coming from. Oh, hey, Xan, what's up? I'll bring you in a second, actually. But I'll finish this point, and if you want, we can go over it in a second. If you want to, go ahead and join my, what's it called? The waiting room in my Discord, and I'll bring you in. But for me, the most important thing is sort of considering utility, right? Utility versus harm, and I think that you don't need it. I won't say any more because I'll go ahead and I'll wait to bring you in so that we can continue the discussion. Because, I mean, it feels weird talking about, like, everything that happened with you, like, not being here, right? So, yeah. In other ways, yeah, the chat is just, like, all, hey, Xanderhal. Of course it is. Which is cool. I love having guests on here. It's, like, it's a great thing. That's not the real Xanderhal. I'm reasonably sure it is. He has, like, the symbol and everything. That would be pretty funny, though. That'd actually be, like, pretty fucking hilarious. Hey, what's up, Xan?
Oh, hey. Yeah, I just woke up about 2 minutes ago, so if my voice sounds a little weird, a little nasally or something, I got that morning congestion, you know what I mean?
Yeah, I got you. Wait a second, hold on. It's like, you're in the same time zone as me, right?
Yes, I did wake up at 5:30 in the afternoon.
Holy shit. I mean, like, hey, no judgment. I've totally done that before, but, like, that might be kind of a problem. Are you all right? Are you doing fine?
Oh, no, I'm okay. I slept in quite a bit because I stayed up really late making a video, and we can actually get into that in a little bit because I think it is kind of relevant to the Korviday thing, but only if you're down to talk about it.
Yeah. No, I mean, like, I'm totally cool to talk about it. So did you watch? I was talking a little bit about my, like, sort of my initial thoughts on sort of everything that happened between you and Korviday. So did you have a chance to watch any of that?
No, I actually just got here. I noticed that you had DM'd me, and I was like, holy shit, I forgot I was supposed to go on Riley's stream today. Then I saw it was only 14 minutes ago when you had messaged me. I was like, okay, we're good, okay. I'll just be a little late.
No, you're all good. And I managed to. No, I'm noticing that it can just be and and like it's nothing against like you or anyone. It can just be like a little risky, like planning to have a guest on at a very specific time, right? Because shit happens, and like stuff happens in people's lives, and but it's whatever. Like it's all good. So essentially, what I was sort of talking about was I'll give you sort of like my initial sort of gleaning of your debate. I watched the debate between you and Korviday. Obviously, there's been a lot that's been happening since then, but I feel like that's sort of like the best place to start, right? And we can, of course, like things have happened since then, and I don't want to take away from like all the discussions that's happened since then, but just for the frame of reference. So my initial watching of the video or of the debate between you two, I essentially see like two overbearing, like two still like outstanding issues from the debate, right? Like two things that weren't really resolved, or two things that you both like still criticize each other for. I think that Korviday's strongest argument against you was the ableism bit, about ableist language, and I can talk about that a little bit. And I think that your strongest argument against Korviday is the fact that it seems like they kind of implied that they were going to be debating you about a lot more than they actually did, and that they kind of honed in on a very specific issue and didn't actually defend any of the other statements that they made against you on Twitter. Right?
Mm-hmm.
So
more or less, that's it.
Yeah. So I mean, like, if you want to give some of your thoughts, you can go ahead.
Yeah. I'd like to start off by saying that even though I've come to the conclusion that I don't think Korviday went into that debate in good faith, I still think they made very good arguments on the ableism stuff, and that's why I changed my mind on it.
Yeah.
Usually, and I pride myself on this quite a bit. I mean, it's literally like not the gimmick of my channel, but what it's literally what my biggest video is about, like me and my political journey. If I hold a belief very strongly, I'm very attached to this belief, and I believe that it's true, but then someone makes an argument that fairly strongly debunks it or argues against it and uses logic and everything to get to that position, and I can't argue against that. I'm like, well, I mean, that is true. That is probably something I need to worry about. I'm probably going to change my mind. I mean, if I didn't, then I want to be right about things. So if I don't come out of a debate that I was wrong about something in, having changed my mind, I lost that debate, right? And so, yeah, I think Korviday has a point about the ableism stuff, and so that's why I decided, even though I think it probably gets me a few brownie points with the edgy gamer boys that like to say slurs and call their friends the R word and whatnot, it's probably just not a good idea, because I know there's a lot of people in my audience who aren't, or who are not cool with ableism, so just might as well not do it, because it's not really... I can probably find other ways to do edginess without it if I'm really creative, but I don't know, maybe use that creativity will push me to make better insults and better edgy rhetoric that doesn't really like target a particular denomination of people.
Yeah. No, I mean, like, sorry, go on.
Oh yeah, I wanted to get into why I think Korviday's in bad faith, but if you had something you wanted to interject there, you can. Yeah,
no, so my only thought that I wanted to add to that, because so to give you context where I was coming from at the beginning of the video, is that this is a bit more nuanced, like the whole ableism language discussion. I think that a lot of people think that it's not very nuanced and that's sort of open and shut, but I don't see it that way, because I think that fundamentally you and Korviday agree that to some degree it's harmful to employ that sort of rhetoric, and that the distinction between you and their view was more about like the cost benefit analysis, like does whatever benefit it bring outweigh the possible harm that it does to people, right? And so I was more kind of like, I've been thinking a lot more along that lines, and so like I don't want to... Now, mind you, this is different from my own personal view, right? Like on principle, I'm not going to employ that certain, that type of language, and I don't, I'm not going to defend it. But I think that what might be interesting for you if you ever want to do something like this, because honestly, like, I'm not sure how much, like, I know that you made an argument before that like the ableism language, like by virtue of using it, has been able to bring people into your community from like a more edgy background. I would be very interested in seeing like numbers to that effect. So like maybe posting like a poll to your Twitter, like, hey, how many of you like actually joined my community by virtue of the fact that you use like the R slur during one of your streams or something like that? Because I feel like let's say hypothetically that you posted a poll like that, and then it turns out that like only less than like 5% of your community actually joined for that purpose, and that like all like overwhelmingly the vast majority of people joined for like some other reason, whether it was like the quality of your arguments or like the different topics that you talk about, or like the fact that you're like a very a leftist that's willing to stand up for leftist subjects, right? Like I feel like you would just see that. And again, like I could be totally wrong on this. I don't know. Maybe like 99.9% of your audience actually follows you because you use the R slur. I don't know. But this is just like sort of my hypothesis that like I feel like most people probably follow you for another reason. So I don't know. I feel like the benefit of using that language, and it sounds like we sort of agree on this, whether or not it's for the same reason, or at least that we're sort of at this point that even if there is some benefit to using that, I think that the harm just outweighs any benefit it could bring.
Yeah, no, that's basically where I was at, right? Because I'm not going to use. There's a undeniable fact that me using ableist language will harm people who aren't cool with it within my community. The idea is, does the bad of that outweigh the good of potentially being able to reach out to those edgy boys online that like to use ableism?
Exactly.
And I always thought ableism as being like probably the least problematic of like edgy things I could do, because like what else is there? There's like I guess sexism and racism, and I'd never joke about transphobia. Like going even further, I mean it gets to a point where there's just like there's no these things are not going to bring anybody over nearly as much as they're just going to hurt my audience. And depending on where we draw the line with ableism, like there's still people who claim that whenever I say brainworms, like this person has brainworms, that's ableism. It's like, okay, but like brainworms isn't a real thing to my knowledge. I mean, I guess there are some people who've had their brain matter eaten by parasites, because that's a thing that happens, but I mean, that's like so rare that whenever it happens, I think there's this show that was on Discovery Channel called A Monster Inside of Me, and it's like it's super gross show about people who've gotten parasites inside of them. Super gross. Yeah, but I don't really think that's on the same level. So I mean, depending on where we draw the line where ableism begins, my justification used to be doing what I do, trying to attack people's ideas and their integrity. Just the way I do things. It is really important to be able to attack their intelligence. But that doesn't mean I have to attack their ability, or if I think they have a disability, right? So I figure I can probably just be more creative with stuff like that without doing anything that is what most people would genuinely say ableist, right? Like instead of saying the R word, I can say this person is brainworms. This person is smooth brain. This person sounds like I don't know. But like there's I mean those things are a bit softer, and I know there are people who take issue with that as well. But I think it would be such a small minority of people that it probably makes it worth it.
Yeah. No, I mean like again, for me, really like, and I haven't heard the arguments whether or not like what like. To the effect that saying that someone has brainworms is ableist, like I haven't heard that argument, and I'm not sure if I believe that's reasonable, and I withhold my opinion until I hear that argument. But like my first sort of inclination is that like the main issue is just using a word that has so much loaded language that it has like disparately harmed certain communities, and that like I don't know, like obviously like I understand your perspective that there are a lot of times where you're looking at people's content on the internet and they just say things that are so outrageously crazy that you have to wonder if, you're like, it almost goes like by virtue of them making the statement itself, it goes to impugn their own intelligence, right? Like I get wanting to be able to call that out. It is just sort of the question of like, how do we go about doing that? Because like obviously like you do want to be able to call out when someone is saying like something stupid or something outrageous or something like completely fucking wrong, right? Like I get that. For me, like the only way that, and again, like I want to leave the conversation to people who are of that background. Like I don't want this to turn into the sort of thing where like the conversation is being led to people who don't come from a disabled background. But like for me, I feel like the main problem was just like using the one specific word, and otherwise you can probably get away with saying a lot of things.
Yeah, I mean that's generally where I sit now. I will say one of the things that is dumb and ableist. I mean, it depends where you draw the line. I certainly agree with that now. One of the reasons why I always wanted to try to be as edgy as I could possibly be while explaining my beliefs is because most of the criticisms I get about using ableist language come from people who have for the most part, never been reactionaries. They've never been like far right or reactionaries, or been in these spaces, generally speaking,
Sure.
where the people that I'm trying to reach hang out.
Yeah.
And I can say, just from my experiences, having been one of those people, having spent a lot of time in those spaces, the type of humor that appeals, or just the type of rhetoric in general that appeals to these people, whew, it's a lot worse than anything that I do.
No, I
and
get.
Sometimes I used to get worried that I wasn't being edgy enough, because I would go into some of the old discords I would hang out in back when I was a reactionary. Because I'm still in a few of them, like from 2b2t.org, the Minecraft server. I'd go back into some of those discords and see what they're saying in the chat. And it's just like, I would have to go nuclear edgy to appeal to these people.
Sure.
It's just, it would be impossible. So I don't know, that's a lot of what motivated me for a while.
No, I mean, like, I completely understand. Something that's unique about my background, which probably helps me to sort of understand that, is that when I was working in Memphis and I was working at the nonprofit I did helping people who were homeless, right? Those are not exactly the most polite people, right? And that's not saying anything about them personally, but like, when you've been raised in a certain background, it's not as if I, as a queer person, wasn't called like the F slur on more than one occasion, right? Like, shit happens. And so, like, for me, because I didn't really have any opportunity, like, when you're online, there's sort of the ability to be able to go, like, leave certain spaces, be able to find others which are more welcoming and more accepting, right? But for me, because of where I was at in my life, I didn't have that possibility. I was sort of stuck at where I was at, and so I had to just kind of deal with it, right? So, I mean, like, I've been exposed to people who have said, like, believe me, and this is probably a big reason why I'm really sympathetic and I consider you a friend and all that, is because, like, believe me, I've been around people who've said, like, a lot worse things in my life and who I've gotten along with, right? Because I understand that fundamentally that they're good people. I just feel like here, the sort of distinguishing factor is that, like, whereas most of the people who I was helping weren't necessarily, like, public figures, right? Like, we have someone, like, we're having a conversation with people who fundamentally are public figures and actually, like, pretty... I mean, we're not talking like ContraPoint size public figures, but decently large in their own right, you know? And so, like, the consequences of, like, even small things like that are actually pretty monumental. I was actually talking with, I was talking with a larger creator the other day, and it'd be like, the more that you, the larger that you grow as a content creator, especially a leftist content creator, the more scrutiny you come under, right? I'm actually kind of enjoying being a smaller content creator right now, because let's face it, I haven't gone under all of that much scrutiny at this point, right? Which is cool, because it means I can talk to people and, not have to deal with the negative aspects of being a larger creator. But, like, that's something that sorry, go on if you're going to say something.
Oh yeah, I was gonna say I can completely relate to that. But I remember the days when I was a smaller YouTuber. Nobody on Twitter knew who I was. I didn't really have that much accountability on me.
Yeah.
But I think the most you've had to deal with was, like, during the Essence of Thought stuff, when they did some bad stuff that I feel like they were trying to, like, make you lose your ability to do the bar exam.
It was not great, and very scary. It's definitely made me much more cautious, and I've definitely tried my best to be kind towards people who I want to be. I don't really give a fuck about, like, bigots or reactionaries, but like, to other leftists, I am definitely, I always try to extend that olive branch to the best of my ability. But yeah, right, like, at this point, I haven't really had to deal that much, so I understand. And there's also this element that there's a lot of people who are going through this. And when I say who are young, I mean, like, relative to, like, the vast majority population, right? Like, all of us are decently young, right? Like, most of us are, like, under 30. We're, like, still in the beginning parts of our lives relative to the entire rest of it. I mean, we're like an entire generation that's sort of dealing with this new thing that we don't have that we don't really have, like, a how-to guide on how to do it, right? So as we're going through, and as I suspect that people are operating in good faith and these sorts of things unfold, I do want to try and have as much discussion as is productive, right? So, like, on something like this, and especially, and this might be a good pivot into some of your criticisms of Korviday, because I understand some of them relate to this idea that the way that we engage with criticism online, especially on social media, it can have a really detrimental effect if you let it get to a certain point and employ a certain way of phrasing your concerns and criticisms, right? And I want to make sure, as we're going forth in this conversation, because I've thought about this a lot, right? I don't want to make it out that this is, like, a criticism based on, like, fundamentally on, like, a preference for, like, respectability politics. perhaps some of this is coming from my experience. I mean, I literally just took written and oral advocacy, right, which is fundamentally like a class on persuasion, right? And the last thing you ever want to do if you are trying to fundamentally to persuade someone is to like criticize their moral character or to insult them. I think I would actually like if I did that, I would never be hired by any firm or any place ever. I would be blackballed into oblivion, right? And so when you're trying to be persuasive, now if you're just trying to be critical of someone and you're just trying to shit on them, if we're talking about like a reactionary or like Sargon of Akkad or whatever, right? Then yeah, you can be as shitty on them, as shitty towards them as you want. But I was a little hurt by some of the things that I saw between you and Korviday on Twitter, right? Do you want to talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, it basically stems to why I don't know if I feel comfortable saying Korviday was in good faith.
Sure.
So I should probably tell you about the lead up to the debate.
Yeah.
Now, Korviday is somebody that I had blocked because I'd seen them in my mentions saying some really, really mean and just incorrect stuff about me.
Sure.
I don't know. I don't know how you feel about it currently. I'm actually working on a video about it right now that debunks literally everything.
Oh, wow.
But the harem drama. So a lot of people on Twitter that have no idea what they're talking about have been saying that I have like a sex cult. Even Thought Slime jumped in on this.
I remember seeing
and it was
that.
weird. It was really weird, and I didn't know why. You'll find out how I figure out what happened there when you see the video. It's gonna be pretty good.
All right, awesome.
Now, basically, what I had done, just for like a Cliff Notes version of the story behind this, you understand why I was so angry at Korviday.
Sure.
Me, and a little while ago, I had to take a break from streaming because I got really burned out on it, needed a break. I also bit a big hole in my lip, so it was hard for me to talk for long periods of time. Ouch. So I was like, okay, I want to take a break from streaming for a little bit. So I spent a lot of time in my Discord server, chilling in the voice chat and playing video games. I started talking to a few people in there who, I should mention, were not fans of me.
All right.
But did enjoy hanging out in my server to talk to people. And so I started talking to them, and they thought they were pretty chill. And I didn't have anything else to do all day, so we kind of just hung out and played video games. And eventually, because we would be sitting in VC and talking, me and like these other friends that I'd made, some of them I'd known for a long time as well. We were talking, we'd hang out, but then like a bunch of my fans would join the voice chat, and it would kind of be not chill. So we decided to make a separate section for me to hang out in with my friends, and we decided to call it Xanderhal's Harem as a reference to Destiny, because Destiny has like a running joke that he's like the protagonist of a harem anime. Which is like when you have like a one male character and a bunch of female characters, and the female character's like, I'm just explaining it for chat. So it wasn't like an actual polyamorous relationship or anything. It was literally just called Xanderhal's Harem as a joke because all of them were women and I was a guy. But there wasn't like anything romantic between any of us. Okay. Also, I've seen this thing going around that no trans women were allowed in our friend group. One of them was literally trans. This is just like a blatant lie on the part of the girl making this accusation. And it's funny because we have screenshots of her talking to the trans girl that was in our friend group about girl dick and about her girl dick. So she's just lying. The girl who made the accusation is just lying here. So I'm excited to put out this video because we got a lot of screenshots.
All right.
And so we would just kind of hang out all day. There was an NSFW section of the the chat for people to like post, but it was done completely consensually. And I mean, I don't see any issue with that. Like I mean, if they were fans of me, then that would be pretty problematic. But they weren't. So I mean, they were just friends of mine. Mm-hmm. And then we eventually did end up needing to move it into another server because Emily got really annoyed that people were complaining because people thought it was actually real. People thought I had like an actual like polycule that I was forming and having hosted in my server, and I was like, it's not that, but fine. So we decided to move it to a different server, and one of the other women in there that I was friends with, she ended up making the server. She was the one who owned it, the only one with power in it. She would actually change my nickname and my role to like simp and stuff like that, or whatever she found funny. So I didn't really have any power in there, but it was a good meme.
Yeah.
And things went fine like that for a while until one of the members, who I won't name on your stream because I don't know if you want to like.
Yeah, let's
platform
not
that.
mention. Yeah, let's not mention names.
One of the girls that was in there, one day while I was asleep, sleep until 5 p.m., had, and she stated this herself, so I don't think I'll get any heat for this, a mental breakdown.
Okay.
She was in a voice chat with everyone else, as well as one of my moderators for my server, talking about Star Wars, and she's like a huge Star Wars fan.
Okay.
And the topic of Reylo came up because she's a big time Reylo stan. Reylo is like the shipping of Rey and Kylo Ren.
Oh, all right. I heard that before and I was unfamiliar. That makes sense.
Yeah, she's like a huge time shipper of that, to the point where like she's obsessive about it. And apparently, some drama in the Star Wars community happened a long time ago, where John Boyega, the actor who plays Finn, said some misogynistic stuff about Rey, the character, and this got a lot of Reylo fans upset, and they went after John Boyega with racism. They took like racist death threats and stuff like that.
Wow. All right.
And so talking about this set this girl off, to the point where she started screaming. Allegedly, it was a voice chat that I was not in, so I'm not 100% sure, but judging by the screenshots of her reaction afterwards, this holds up. She started screaming, insulting everybody else, and then said that she's mad because apparently when that original drama happened in the Star Wars community, this was like a while ago, she tried to kill herself over it. So they'd reminded her of that, and so that's what really set her off. And so she ended up lashing out at everybody, calling the other people names that I will not repeat on this stream because I don't know what your level of like bad words are that you're allowed to have, that you want to have.
I mean,
on
like,
here.
let's just keep it clean for now.
Yeah, we'll keep it clean. And then went to her own server where she made an announcement. I kind of want to read it. It's nothing personal, but just to kind of give you a little bit of insight on
Go for it.
Yeah, let me just bring up. I actually made a document I plan on releasing along with my video on it because I want to make sure all the information available is there, and it has all the screenshots in it. So I'm gonna. That sounds great. There it is. Yep. All right. So this was the announcement that she made. At everyone, anti-Reylo or The Last Jedi speak will get you an instant ban, even if you are joking. I don't care anymore. I don't get upset over many things. I'd honestly rather you mock me for my disabilities, me being a girl, and the fact I got sexually assaulted when I was younger, before I let you mock me and make fun of the two things I mentioned. Thank you and good night. It's so fucking easy. It's such easy fucking rules, but half of you can't fucking follow them. At everyone, that also includes outside of the server as well. So if I see you say that shit, you will get kicked. So yeah, she kind of went on like a little bit of a a bit of a tirade. She also told everybody who was in the voice chat when she like had this, when they came up with that topic, that if she kills herself or self-harms herself, it'll be their fault, which is undeniably abuser behavior. Like saying if I kill myself, it's 100%.
So that's based on the people who were in that voice call with her. That's what they said. That she said.
No, I have screenshots of her saying it. If you want me to read it, I can. The fact you didn't message me when I was missing for 5 days shows how much of snakes you are. You never cared. Too bad. It's all your fault. You can deny it, but it's all your fault that I attempted to kill myself. If I self-harm, it's your fault. It's all your faults.
Okay. Wow. Yep. All right. Yeah. Okay.
This video is coming out soon. I got screenshots of everything. So
all right. No, thank you for having that available. I appreciate it.
So
John.
So basically, she started blaming everybody else that was involved, that was in like the VC and everything, on her apparently self-harming and trying to kill herself and all that. One of the women in our friend group decided to make sure that she would be okay because she was having a breakdown, and on Twitter as well. You can go see those tweets on her account, I assume, if it's still up.
Okay.
And decided to call the police, her local police, to try to make sure she's like, if she actually tries to hurt herself, they can stop her. And she apparently, from what I was told, she got Baker acted for like 5 days. And then when she started messaging us again, it became very clear she wanted back in our friend group. And we were like, no.
Yeah, absolutely not.
No, wait, the things that you said and did, that's unforgivable. We're not letting you back in, but I didn't want to like just say that to her face, right? I didn't want to like just say fuck you, go away.
Sure.
I told her no, we're not letting you back in, but I didn't want to give the impression that we were friends, but I also didn't want to like let her off too hard because I thought that would be a bad idea with like the state she's in.
Yeah.
Yeah, so then she started tweeting things like this. That while we were still like kind of cool, right? And I still followed her on Twitter and stuff. She started tweeting weird things like, I should be clear, I think Xanderhal is a good leftist and someone we need. My opinions of him are personal, so no amount of weirdos planning to cancel him can get me to talk to them about it, unless you offer me a place to live and food. That last part might sound like a joke. It's not, because shortly after I followed her, because I was getting weirded out, she said, Xanderhal unfollowed, so I can safely say it. Fuck him. And then after that, she started tweeting, like, at 1 million words a minute, about how I'd, like, promised her the future, like, promised her a place to live, that we were in a relationship, that I was going to buy her food, and a place to live with me and my girlfriend. Now, this is, like, not true on so many levels, mostly because the current living situation that I'm in wouldn't have even allowed this.
Yeah.
I will be moving in with my girlfriend pretty soon, though, because we're actually finding a place. But at the time, this just was an idea, if anything. And the most I ever did in regards to her was say, hey, since we're friends, maybe sometime in the future we can hang out. But no solid plans were ever made. So I don't know where she gets this.
The way that I always frame this is like I always wonder, like the question that I always ask is not necessarily whether or not she not whether or not she had an absolute right to believe this, but whether or not it was reasonable for her to believe this. So let me just ask you the question then. So based on that, do you think it was reasonable for her to believe that she was going to have like an authentic relationship with you?
No, definitely not. Especially because I have screenshots of everybody else. I don't have any of me because most of my talking was done in voice chat.
Yeah.
I have screenshots of literally everybody else that was in the server saying this was not a relationship.
Okay.
As well. So hey, I'm bringing out the receipts.
Yeah. No, I mean, like, and that's great, right? Because I mean, for me, right, as I was following this, and like I didn't weigh in, right, but like my main question is not so much like whether or not it's not so much whether or not you had the availability to be able to give her those things, right? It's more about like whether or not she was able to form a reasonable belief that you were going to, right? This goes along the same logic. Actually, it's very similar to like the logic that I have to be careful with when I'm talking about like the danger of possibly forming like a lawyer-client relationship. Because the way that happens, it's not as if that happens from like me sitting down and like giving someone a piece of paper and having them signing on the dotted line, right? It's a lot more fluid. It just happens when someone reasonably believes that I become their lawyer, right? That's like the full threshold for it. So like I have to be extremely careful to always make sure that a reasonable person would not believe that I am their lawyer, right? That's why I have my disclaimers. That's why I make sure to always like caveat everything that I say when it involves the law, right? Like that's why I do that thing, right? And so like with this conversation, like that's sort of where I have my eye towards, and I tend to agree based on what you've told me that it would have been an unreasonable thing for her to believe that you were going to give her all of these things.
Yeah, it really was not something that she could have come to the conclusion of reasonably.
Yeah.
But her argument that she's been using like recently from what I've seen on Twitter is that she has autism, and so she wasn't able to interpret that whenever I would say, I want to buy a giant mansion and import a harem, like referencing Destiny, that was a joke.
Okay, unless like you specifically knew about it, then that's not your fault. I'm just gonna say that.
Yeah.
Immediately.
Also, I'm going to be including clips from everybody else who is involved because they're being very negatively affected by this girl's lying. They're also going to be like I'm going to be including clips of them and their thoughts on these into the video as well.
Okay.
They were in the voice chat at the time. None of them thought that it was serious. All of them knew that it was a joke. So yeah. Also, around the same time, I was joking a lot in the voice chat about buying an offshore oil rig and starting my own independent country, like Diamond Dogs from Metal Gear Solid 5. So I feel like the blatant sarcasm was
very prevalent.
Was pretty much out there.
Yeah.
But like going on to like her Twitter meltdown, she started to get into like started saying some really weird stuff. So she started basically admitting that she was only friends with me for money and only saw like a potential relationship with me for money.
Okay.
So here's some of her like tweets and messages. Holy shit, I realize I almost performed the plot of Parasite on Xanderhal. Now that is really performing well as a leftist. There are two Xanders in my life. One of them is my closest friend who I care about very deeply and would die for. The other one is Xanderhal, but one of them is my closest friend. The other can buy me food. They're basically on the same level. So, and then after after I like unfollowed her and she started like, attacking me on Twitter, she tweeted, "So who's going to be my next sugar daddy?" And then like a few other tweets like that. So it became pretty clear.
Yeah, that's not great. That's not great at all.
Yeah, it became pretty clear she only intended to like get stuff out of me.
Yeah, just a mooch off of you.
And then so I blocked her on Twitter actually, because I was like, okay, this is going too far. At this point, this wasn't even drama, so I just blocked her.
Sure.
Then she made a new account, and I'm gonna have to open up a folder for this one to get the get some of the tweets here because there's some good ones. After I blocked her, she bypassed the block by making a new account called "Fuck You 735186101."
What does that mean?
It was just because I blocked her. She made a new account called "Fuck You."
Okay.
So she could like continue to tweet at me. And at this point, her tweets had gotten to the point where it was just I couldn't not laugh at these. She was like tweeting in all caps, saying things like, "Why am I the emotional manipulator when he insinuated I could have a better life? He calls me abusive because he knows he can make me the screaming harpy," which she tweets in all caps. She was literally telling, and we have proof of this, she was literally telling the other women in our friend group that if she killed herself or she self-harmed, it was their fault. She was literally being abusive. And now she's made a new account to bypass a block. And so I have 19 screenshots of her tweeting on this new account, the Fuck You account. So yeah.
Yeah, it's a lot. It's a lot. It's no, I certainly, like, based on the totality of the evidence that you provided me, I'm inclined to agree with you that, yeah, it seems like you were misrepresented a lot in the course of, when that happened. Just based on, like, I'm completely, like, I'm trusting you. I'm ascribing, like, complete validity to everything that you're saying to me. But yeah, based on what you have told me, yeah, it sounds like this person came to an unreasonable conclusion and then engaged in abusive behavior as a result of that unreasonable conclusion, right? So it's, like, bad on two fronts for me, right? And of course, then all the drama sort of started unfolding after that.
Yeah, and I saw Korviday was in chat a minute ago and was just saying, "Don't care, don't care, don't care," in response to all this.
I wasn't paying attention. I don't pay attention to my chat too much when I'm talking to someone. Also, I'm very sorry about that, chat. I know that I should, but like I'm more focused on the conversation right now. Also, wait a second. Hold on. This is actually very confusing to me. Korviday, are you sure that you're in chat? Because you messaged me earlier that you were too tired to not come on to come on to the chat. So like, I'm very confused by this.
I don't know if it's 100% him because I can't click on his account, but I'm pretty sure it's him. He said, "I don't care. I'm leaving now because I'm sick of this," and like just saying, "I'm just here to say that this is the 4th stream he's made in a week talking about this. I haven't made a stream. What are you talking about? I stream like almost every day, and sometimes topics come up. I don't."
Hold on.
This is why I think Korviday is in bad faith, because the way that they're engaging with this as well. And we'll actually get into it a little later. Because I actually know that Korviday is going at this in bad faith because of a sound clip, or not a sound clip, but a video clip I have from a stream that this girl did. But we'll get into that a little later because it gets worse somehow.
Well, can I just, before we go on, just on this, so, I mean, like, I message, like, the way that I handle these sorts of things when I try to mediate, I mean, like, for me, and before we go on, just because, like, this is a bit of a red flag for me, Korviday was one of the people who wanted me to mediate, like to do mediation content. Like when I posted the poll earlier, I think it was like about a month ago, where I asked people what content I wanted, people wanted me to do. They were one of the people who specifically commented that they wanted me to do mediation content. So that's one thing. And the second thing, I mean, like, this is very surprising because I told you both, I invited you both onto the stream and I wanted to talk to both of you individually to get your sides of the story and to be able to try and come to some form of mediation. Like, I've been very clear, I've been very transparent at every point, and literally they messaged me, all right, so I messaged them earlier because originally I planned to have them come on before you because I know that you specifically requested to come on after they did. And so they said, "Hi, IDK, if I'm up for it, not gonna lie, I'm kind of exhausted. I think the debate just kind of took it out of me, lol." And I said, "Okay, then I won't invite you on." So I'm confused why they say, like, why they were exhausted, but apparently not exhausted enough to be able to come on when they already started watching the stream and were able to comment on it. But that's a very weird observation. I wanted to just put that out there, like, while that's sort of fresh off the presses.
Yeah, I have a few ideas as to why
Yeah.
he was too tired to come on the stream, but not too tired to be in chat. But I mean, we'll get into that a little later.
Yeah.
I
Let's
have
keep talking.
other
Let's keep talking.
evidence, and I'll let you come to your own conclusion.
Mhm.
Yeah. So I have from here. She started demanding an apology from me.
Okay.
On Twitter, just like all caps tweeting at me. And at this point, she'd already made her second account, and I was actually in a voice chat in my server with like a bunch of my friends at the time. And these tweets, now this may sound a little bit insensitive. I think this is the worst thing I did in this entire interaction. Was we were like reading her tweets in like a Donald Trump voice and like laughing at them because they were just so they were low key kind of funny. Because like this is somebody who is engaged in abusive behavior against my friends, who admitted that they were using me for money and a place to live, who made a new Twitter account to bypass me blocking them called "fuck you," and then started spamming me with with ats in all caps, and then now was like demanding an apology. So while it was probably a little bit insensitive, I felt like it's not that big a deal.
Sure.
And so we're like reading her tweets in a Trump voice and stuff like that. And then we decided, okay, this is going a little too far. Like we gotta sort this out. So we eventually caved, invited her to a voice chat.
Okay.
And we brought her in. At first, it was like in the same voice chat we were all in, but we decided it would probably be best to do this in private because she was crying. And so we brought her into a separate voice chat, and it was me, only a few of the girl, like the women that were in the harem, and then my head moderator or admin, and like just basically some of my server staff to make sure things didn't get too heated. And she started crying, and I got like really, really uncomfortable because women crying makes me uncomfortable.
Okay.
There may be psychological reasons for that, but I'm not going to armchair psychoanalyze myself.
Hey, therapy is great. Listen, everyone should get therapy.
Yeah, just in general, women crying makes me uncomfortable. She was also screaming at some parts, like full on screaming at me. So I just eventually said, all right, whatever. Actually, at one point, she admitted in the call that she was wearing a mask. This was the direct quote. She was wearing a mask. That's how she worded it the whole time. She was like, I'm glad you liked my mask. Whenever I said, we thought you were cool, we thought you were chill, she said, I'm glad you liked my mask. She admits that she was pretending to be someone she wasn't. She was pretending she didn't have the issues that she did. And it's weird because now on Twitter, she's saying things like, how did Xanderhal not arm... She said this in her live stream she did. Xanderhal likes to armchair psychoanalyze people so much. Why didn't he armchair psychoanalyze me and figure out I have autism and wouldn't be capable of understanding the jokes that he made? I think it's like a direct quote from her stream that she did about this. That's... I don't even know where to begin with that.
Yeah, that's a lot.
Hold on. So first, she actively admitted that she was wearing a mask, so I wouldn't be able to tell if she did have any of those issues. Two, if I did, then me refusing to be friends with somebody because she has autism would be ableist as fuck. So I mean, like,
it puts you in the box. It's putting you in a box.
Yeah. So there's nothing I can do there. And so eventually I just bit the bullet and I said, you know what? I don't actually mean it, but just to get this to stop, I'm gonna apologize to her for whatever perceived like ill that she believes I did. And at the time, it was, we were in a relationship. I promised her a place to live and she's poor, so she needed it. And because she had a mental breakdown, I broke up with her. And now she still believes that she believes she deserves an apology because she had an opportunity at a better future and lost it, even though that wasn't even close to what actually happened. But that was her narrative at the time. All the stuff you've heard about, like me abusing like fans, her being a fan, none of that. She didn't go with any of that in the beginning. That was not her story, explicitly. In fact, I have evidence to support that too. I got screenshots.
Wonderful. Thank you for being like, I appreciate evidence. Obviously, like I'm very pro evidence. So thank you for being as prepared as you can be.
Oh, if you like evidence, shortly after as the video goes up, I'm going to be publishing it in the description. I'm going to be uploading very mildly edited screenshots of everything that is relevant to this.
Damn.
And I have over 50 screenshots so far. Where me and the other women that we're friends with that were involved with this are still gathering more, like from her Twitter, from things like that.
Sure.
So, and I'm going to be editing out like docs and things that are like not safe for work and stuff like that. But I'm going to be publishing those screenshots for people to make their own opinions on when they see that.
Okay.
But and so after I apologized to her, she seemed to calm down and said she would delete her tweets. I was like, all right, I guess we're good now.
Yeah.
And I wake up the next morning, and I find out fucking Thought Slime.
Oh shit! That's when this happens.
The drama. He caught wind of the drama, and he tweeted about it with no evidence. Not even having like he hadn't even listened to what the girl had to say at this point because she ended up correcting him at the time. It's funny too. He tweeted, "There's a very specific reason why I emphasize that YouTubers should not date their fans, but I did not think that we would arrive at the sex cult portion of the danger quite so quickly." Then someone very familiar responded, "I'm lacking context. Is this referring to Xanderhal TV?" It was you.
Yeah.
Then he said, "Yep." And then someone in response said, "The situation is messy, to be sure, but calling it a sex cult is dishonest hyperbole." Then Thought Slime responded, "No, it isn't actually."
Wait, what?
Somebody named. Do you want me to send a screenshot of this just so you can see it? Because someone named Eddie Chase had responded to that. Let's see. Thought Slime. There we go. I'm going to go ahead and send it into our DMs.
Yeah.
Do you mind?
Yeah, go for it.
There we go. All right, so you can see this was the interaction on Twitter. You're in it as well, but also the part that I'm referencing is a little bit lower. Eddie Chase said, "The situation is messy, be sure, but calling it a sex cult is dishonest hyperbole." And he said,
I remember
no,
this.
It isn't actually.
I remember this. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, and so basically, Thought Slime like doubled down on this claim, which he made with no evidence, not even with not even having like even talked or seeing anything other than I imagine like a couple tweets from the girl that made the accusation, right? And then about 2 hours later, he tweeted. Actually, I'll go ahead and message you this as well, so you can. I would actually prefer if you could bring these screenshots up if they're nothing too private yet, because I want to be able to censor some of them because docs. Here is the other Thought Slime screenshot that he did a couple hours later. Should I have used the term sex cult? Evidently not. That is against the wishes of the person who brought this scandal to light. I'm sorry to have done that and upset them. However, the fact that my phrasing has become the takeaway here is very obvious redirect, and then just some other shit that
I feel like that's a pretty important. I feel like that's basically the most important point of like the entire tweet, right? Like that's essentially the accusation. I don't know. Yeah.
And he's saying it's hyperbole. He is saying that it's just a little bit of hyperbole that he said they had a sex cult, which is arguably illegal. As opposed to it was a group of friends where we made a Discord server that we hung out in, and occasionally not safe for work post, and none of them were fans of mine, and it was by no means a sex cult, especially because one of the women in the server was a trans woman who's a lesbian, not attracted to men, not attracted to me in any way sexually or romantically, and any NSFW stuff that happened between with her was with the other women in the server. Like,
oh wow,
it was literally just by like no means a sex cult. But yes, Thought Slime still decided to tweet this out, and still to this day refuses to apologize for it. So yeah.
Oh, so Thought Slime that like never backed away from that whatsoever.
No, he's doubled down, and he actually tweeted this behind a block, so I couldn't defend myself. He tweeted this shortly after blocking me, so there was no way for me to like defend myself from his accusations, which was his intention, I imagine. And so if we go even further, so at this point, the girl's accusation is that we were in a relationship. We were, I promised her a place to live and food and stuff like that, and even corrected Thought Slime saying it was a sex cult, or that there was any like dishonest or any dangerous power imbalances here. I saw Korviday in chat saying there was a power unbalance there.
Oh, really?
And I guess
were they
you can
just
make the case
in
that
here right now?
Yeah, and you can make the case that me as like a creator, I will always have a power imbalance over everybody.
Sure.
But the implication is she was a fan of me. Right. The implication was she was a fan of me, and we're gonna get into how I'm pretty sure that's not true as well, and evidence against that.
Okay.
And so after a while, her accusations started to change as like the drama started to die down, because I made this big Twitter thread that debunked all of her current claims.
Sure.
And I have tweets from people tweeting at her that were in the group saying, "Please stop turning this into drama. Just because there was an NSFW section doesn't mean it was a relationship. None of us thought there was a relationship, and you know it." Stuff like that.
Okay.
But then her accusations started to change, and that's where the current drama came from. It's why you were hearing people on Twitter say Xanderhal had an abusive sex cult with his fans, right? and she started to fall in with some people in the anti-breadtube crowd on Twitter, you know, like Jamie from Twitter, who you may know from calling Peter Coffin a pedophile and
I remember
starting a
that.
ton of drama a while back. I actually have a screenshot of it if you want to.
Yeah, sure, go for it. I mean, like, I can just bring up, if you send me something, I can bring it up on stream, so that's a lot easier.
Yep, so this is the person we were referring to, that this girl who's made the accusation has fallen into, like, this group of people is who she's become friends with, and this is a reference to Peter Coffin.
Gotcha.
Yeah, so these are the people she's hanging out with now. Now, this is not armchair psychology. She said this herself in a tweet, I believe. I don't have a screenshot of it, but I'm pretty sure I remember her saying this.
Okay.
When we were friends, if I ever got into, like, her Discord voice chat, if I ever got into a Discord voice chat with her, a ton of people would join. She'd have a ton of people to talk to, and that seemed to be what she wants. She wanted, like, she wanted social capital, and she wanted literal, like, actual capital, so she could get out of like her impoverished situation, right? And so now she'd found a community of people who already hate me, who already hate breadtubers in general, and are just, like, foaming at the mouth for any a perceived action of, like, sexual impropriety on my part, right? Because that's usually the go-to, right? Like, being able to call someone you don't like on the internet a pedophile or, like, a rapist or, like, a sexual predator is, like, the go-to thing. Because if you can get that going enough, you can ruin someone's career. I mean,
right.
Basically their strategy. So she'd fallen in with those people and had essentially become, I can only assume, their tool, and started, like, sort of repeating their talking points, even though she was, you know, a week ago debunking them on the part of Thought Slime. And this is actually when Korviday got involved. Korviday defended Thought Slime, and I believe the tweet that Korviday made was, anybody attacking Thought Slime for perceived hyperbole is defending someone who has, and then, like, listing their transgressions with me.
Sure.
Which is, like, wrong on so many levels. And this is what I wanted to debate Korviday about, because this is, like, what 90% of their tweets about me were with. Like, so for one, even if I had done this, that doesn't justify it doesn't justify using dishonest hyperbole, as he worded it, against somebody because you have other issues with them. It's dishonest as fuck. Two, the dishonest hyperbole was literally just a lie. It was by no definition a sex cult. And at that time, while most of them wanted to stay anonymous because they didn't like drama, at least a couple of the women involved were already speaking out against this girl's lies, and saying it was not a sex cult. So this was just him, like, looking away from anybody involved and trying to make up his own shit. For reasons I don't know. I know Thought Slime's disliked me for a long time, so I have reasons why.
Okay, but this is important to know. So this is sort of where the things between you and Korviday specifically started, was around sort of, like, the aftermath, or, like, the events involving, like, you and Thought Slime relating to, like, these allegations against you.
As far as I'm aware, yes. The most I'd ever heard of Korviday was ContraPoint's canceling video where she mentioned them. Right. At this point, I didn't even block Korviday until, like, a week or so, until our debate came up, because that's when he really started getting into my mentions and like, defending this girl, which I can I would, if I thought Korviday was in good faith, which I don't anymore, I would be like, okay, I mean, just safer than sorry, believe victims, right? If someone is an alleged victim, you generally want to believe them because there's a lot on the line for them.
Yeah.
But at this point, even still, if he'd done even the slightest bit of research, which evidently he did, because he's still saying I don't care in response to these things, then he would have known that this is unbelievably irresponsible. Literally, all the evidence debunks the claims that they made. And so, if we go even further down the line of shit that happened, she started talking about how she plans on profiting from this drama explicitly, both in the live stream that she did about it, as well as in her tweets. I got a few tweets.
How is she
here,
profit? I mean, like, if you want to show them to me, then yeah, I'll bring them up on stream. But, like, I really, how do you profit from all this drama? I mean, like, aside from, like, views, I suppose.
Yeah, just give me a moment. I'm actually sending you the screenshots right now.
Oh my god. Wonderful. All right, let's see.
Yeah. So these are her tweets. If I ever become a streamer, I'm definitely making that one "you're a simp" into t-shirts, Lamau. He might as well get me a house in a different way. I just need around rounding up to $3,000 for streaming equipment, because the majority has to be pink. Also an extra $2,000 for cosplay, cute clothing, the blue wig, makeup, and bedroom stuff for an aesthetic background, and also my bed breaking. Also in the live stream that she did, unfortunately, I cannot get you clips of it because it was an hour and 33 minutes. But I mean, I'll probably get some clips from that if I can. She says that she's reached out to Thought Slime and Korviday to platform her already, and she plans on making a lot of money from like starting a streaming career or online presence based on the idea that she's like a victim of Xanderhal. So she definitely plans on profiting from this. That's basically her goal. That's why she's letting herself be signal boosted by basically anybody, even if the accusations that they're pushing are just false and something she wouldn't have defended like weeks ago.
So this person's named Spooky, just so I can be aware of this person for the future.
Yeah, that's her name. I don't know if you didn't want to have her name on stream, but yeah, this is her.
We just put the tweets up on stream, so I mean, like, the cat's out.
Yeah.
Yeah,
yeah.
Unfortunate. Yeah, okay. No, I'll just be aware of that for future reference.
Yeah, and so she at this point it's like pretty he said she said, even though I brought up some pretty damning screenshots. I like to think this is pretty good evidence against her claims. But it's still he said she said, right? It's just me against her. But there were 5 other, or technically 6 if you count me, but 5 other people in the group with me, in there with me, who are also very upset by her pushing the narrative that they were victims of like sexual abuse on my part. They are not happy with that, especially because some of them have endured sexual abuse earlier in their lives, and her lying and trivializing it to something like this is really offensive to them. Not only that, but she's also engaged in blatant ableism, as we've already gone over, right? Like not even like just blatant ableism.
Wait,
she's been
do
using
you have
her
examples?
Yeah, she's been using her mental breakdown that she had during the Star Wars stuff as an excuse for her actions, like how she engaged in abusive behavior. She's been using that, and she also said that if I love armchair psychoanalyzing so much, why didn't I armchair psychoanalyze her to figure out she's autistic? But then it would have been ableist of me to not be friends with her for being autistic. Like that would have been. I think we can agree on that. So yeah, those are just a couple of examples right off the top. She's been resorting to like her autism as an excuse for her actions for a while.
Gotcha.
But at this point, the drama, everybody else that was involved is getting really pissed because they know she's lying, and for a while it was just like, yeah, she's lying, but this drama is going to eventually die off, right? But now it's clearly not dying off, and it's affecting them. Literally all the other women involved, it's affecting them very negatively, their mental state and whatnot, and so they want to speak out against it. And so I actually we watched the live streams that this girl made all together. We did it all together in a voice chat in Discord, and we basically wrote down all of the claims she made, and we were like calling her out on all of her bullshit. And so what I did was I made a document which I wrote down all of the basic claims I've been hearing from her. And on Twitter, my responses, I'm going to be recording the responses of everybody else involved to include in the video, as well as screenshots to substantiate my response to my debunking of these claims whenever they're necessary.
Okay.
So, I mean, we can go over a couple of those if you like.
Yeah, let's go ahead and do that. We're already including like as much context as possible. This is just nice for me because I like being able to go over the evidence.
And you got 106 viewers right now.
Yeah, I just noticed that. Holy shit. Hey, thanks for watching, everyone. I appreciate it.
Yeah, you're going to be the new drama alert. I would actually way prefer your placed Keemstar, honestly.
We'll see what happens. I really don't want to be like the person that's just like talking about all the drama. I'd rather there not be any drama. But hey, if this is what you got to do to try and get rid of it, then I'm all for it.
Yeah, I mean, like, this is the problem, though, right? Because at this point, I feel like this is some pretty damning evidence against this girl who made these accusations.
Mm-hmm.
And now we had Korviday, who was just basically like outward stated they fully believe her no matter what.
Sure.
Making a ton of indefensible claims about me on Twitter. And then when we get into a debate, he falls back, says, I don't want to talk about these claims that I made on Twitter. He refuses to talk about anything involving this drama, in which he is like outright on his platform stated he believes her and is backing her up. So you can understand the why that would be pretty upsetting for me, because most of the preparation I did for that debate was around this, because this was what I thought the debate was going to be about. Right. That was the majority of the stuff that Korviday tweeted. And then he laser focuses on the ableism stuff, which was like one of like 10 tweets he made about me, right? I actually, in my preparation, was like, okay, I'm probably just going to like just like move on from that if he brings it up, because like I don't think we have the same goals in terms of like de-radicalization and whatnot.
Sure.
But he managed to laser focus on this. Like he was super toxic on Twitter, and then when he got onto stream, he was like super, he basically went from being like a rabid dog on Twitter to being a kitten on stream, you know, playing off very well optically to my audience, to the point where I had my own audience saying, yikes, this ain't it, and like telling me to stop whenever I was like talking to Korviday about it. So you know what? Props to him for playing the optics game so well. Though I admit, towards the end, I did get him to concede literally everything other than the ableism, besides getting into the harem drama.
Yeah.
Like his weird, like ironically enough, psychoanalyzing of Vosh, saying Vosh was distancing himself from me because he thought I was problematic. He like walked back on all of that because there was no evidence for it. He just felt like shit talking me and Vosh. And then also the ContraPoints clip, which after giving the context of, I think he conceded because there's literally no context in which that was like super problematic. The way he tried to frame it in his tweet, which got like I lost friends over that tweet because the way it was framed.
Oh, wow.
People like it came off as me being like a sleazeball that was like talking like negatively or like in a really weird way about ContraPoints. Literally all it was a taken out of context clip of me covering Ariel Scarcella, the grifting turf. Not even a turf, I would say. She's conservative. In which she strawmanned the progressive position that genital preferences are inherently transphobic. And I said, no, that is a strawman. Genital preferences are not inherently transphobic. They can contribute to transphobic attitudes, but on their own, they are not. And then I used an example. So, for example, you can absolutely see a trans woman as a woman and be attracted to them, but may not be interested in having a sexual relationship with them because you are not interested in their genitals. But if you had a trans woman who is post-op and just as every way noticeable as basically a cis woman, right? And you're still not into them because of the fact that they're trans, that's transphobic. And that was basically the clip that I had. And I used ContraPoints as an example because obviously, I mean, she's beautiful.
I'm inclined to agree. Yeah, no, yeah. I agree completely on that front. No, and I see your argument, right? Like I think I was actually watching that stream. I didn't see anything problematic with it. I'm inclined to agree. People can have like there's a distinction between having gender preferences and not seeing someone as authentically a man or a woman or however they identify, right? Like I didn't see anything wrong with that argument. I think that trying to phrase it as something else is very dishonest.
Yeah, absolutely. And so basically Korviday clipped that, and like a lot of people I lost friendships over, and like I can understand the perspective. The way that it was clipped was made to seem like I was talking creepily about ContraPoints, but when we actually took apart the arguments there, even if we did take it at face value, when we actually took apart the arguments, we're talking about somebody who has outwardly stated they like me, that they think I'm cool. They literally, there was drama because she modded me in her stream, her Sims stream the other day, because she was like, she saw me in chat and was like, oh, I know you, you're cool, and then like modded me right away. And then a bunch of people were like, Natalie, why would you mod somebody who's done this, this, and this? Like literally, and then like canceling Contra over modding me in her stream. But yeah, so that was pretty funny.
Yeah.
Fuck, there was something else I was gonna say. Yeah, so basically, like we're talking about somebody who has sold, I believe, has sold merch in reference to like the sensation of having girl dick in your mouth, right? The mouth share thing.
Yeah.
Like this is not somebody who has been like super tight knit and super like nervous, I guess, about talking about their transition to her audience. Like this is something that actively, if you go into any Discords, if you go into the ContraPoints Discord server, if you go into a Reddit, this is basically no more private than the stuff that they joke about on there. Like this is just a thing ContraPoints fans talk about. So I thought this was like very dishonestly taken out of context, and so I responded to it, and I lost friends over that clip because that clip went viral. That thing that Korviday tweeted, that went viral, but he seemed to have more or less conceded it whenever we actually talked about it and discussed the context, because the context seems to make it very different. But yeah, he just laser focused like 90% of the stream on the ableism stuff, which he knew I was the weakest on. He knew he could get me on. He knew he could get me optically on, because there was no way I could argue against, admittedly, there's no way I can argue against this cute non-binary dude who comes onto my stream to tell me why my ableism is problematic. There's just, optically speaking, that's the best optics he could have possibly done playing to my audience. He also was very like cordial and reasonable, even though his claims on Twitter were just indefensible, and his behavior on Twitter was just overtly toxic. And then he was able to just absolutely get a pass from talking about this, the harem drama.
I know
so that's really what pissed me off when it came to the Korviday situation. That's why
Can I share some thoughts?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, so I mean, I've been thinking about this a lot, and I've been talking to different people. I've spoken with Korviday, I've spoken with Chud Logic, because I mean, like, a part of that, like, and I don't hold this against Chud Logic. I think that he had to make like a gut call in the middle of, like, in the moment, right, on whether or not to let you all talk about like that line of questioning, right? I think that one of you were going. I think that you were looking to bring up this specific discussion. Korviday said, "I'd rather not talk about it because like this person has made it clear that they don't want it to be talked about," and then Chud Logic, I mean, like, essentially ruled that, like, okay, we're not going to allow that to happen. So I've spoken to everyone involved. I don't hold it against, Chud Logic, because I think that he made, like, that's a hard thing to deal with if you don't, like, understand this full context, and he probably didn't. So, like, it's a hard thing to, like, it's, like, a hard judgment call in the moment. My first thought is, just, like, on the merits of the argument, we should not talk about this because the person has made it clear that they don't want it to be talked about. Well, I mean, like, first, the ship has already sort of sailed on have it being talked about in public, right? Like, they sort of already made it an issue. Like, they're literally the first people who made it an issue to be talked about in public. So if they want to, like if they want to have it be discussed in public, but then also want to censor any discussion of that subject by people who they made dissent with, I mean, like, that's literally, it's having your cake and eating it too. You can't have it both ways. So, like, that's my first sort of problem. Now, if you want to, like, omit their name, I think that's reasonable, and I think that that's something that you very well could have done in the moment. Like, okay, let's just agree to not, like, mention their name and move on from that, right? Like, that's something that could have been a very easy remedy in that situation. The second thing, right, and this goes to more the optics aspect of it. From a strategy standpoint, like, I sort of, like, look at what Korviday did in two aspects. I do not necessarily hold it against them for laser focusing on something. I've done that in debates myself. I've done that in, like, trials and in court, right? Where, you know, there could be an entire universe of facts to deal with, but you, generally speaking, want to stick to your strongest arguments. And so, like, that's, like, you could play that off as strategy. The thing that I take more of a problem with is when you signal, like, when you give a reasonable impression that you're going to talk about one thing and then you talk about another, right? Something that I'll never do when I talk with someone is I will never give the impression that I want to talk about X, and then I bring someone on the stream and I debate them about Y and Z, right?
Yeah,
because
Korviday,
yeah.
I should clarify too in my DMs with Chud. I don't blame Chud Logic. I think Chud Logic did what any. I mean, I obviously take my issue with the conclusion he came to, but I don't think Chud Logic was in bad faith. I think from his perspective, it was like, okay, someone has made a serious accusation and doesn't want it talked about on my stream. I don't know if I want to platform it, right? So from his perspective, not knowing anything about the drama, I don't think Chud Logic was like out to get me and like ambushing me or anything. I'm just frustrated because if Chud Logic knew the evidence, I feel like he wouldn't have did what he did. And I think Korviday was the one that was in bad faith because the girl that made the accusations doesn't care about it getting platformed. She didn't want me defending myself. And she admitted in her live stream that she was in contact with Korviday before the debate happened. So I feel like there might have been a little bit of I can't say for sure, but I get the feeling from what she said and then Korviday's actions, as well as his behavior on Twitter, that maybe there was a little bit of communication there, and maybe there was an intent to not allow me to defend myself on this topic.
That very well could have been the case. I will... Because mind you, again, like we've been talking a lot about sort of like the criticisms against Korviday. I don't want to make it out that I'm entirely critical, because I think that there is a universe where I think that there's one of two reasonable conclusions at this point. I think it's entirely possible that they were acting in bad faith. That's entirely possible based on the evidence. I think that you certainly have, like, we would call it like a prima facie case, which is just proving that there's it's a reasonable possibility that is like what happened in this case, right? I think that there's also sort of like a strong prima facie case that Korviday may have been someone who sort of looked, or like leapt before they looked, right? It's entirely possible that they're someone similar to Thought Slime. And again, like, I'm not trying, like, I cannot speculate. I don't know what was going through these people's minds. I'm assuming them when I am like talking about like their possible mindsets. I assume people to be good faith actors, right? And so, like, assuming them to be good faith actors in the contrary to them not being, it's entirely possible that they were taking the perspective of, I'm going to defend the victim, right? And that's first and foremost where I'm going. Like, that is the first thing in my mind, and everything else I'm going to do follows from that. Because from what I can tell from seeing Korviday's from Korviday's tweets and Korviday's discussions on Twitter, it seems to be that they are very very distraught with the idea that this discussion has been like a discussion over like marginalized people or with marginalized people has been led in part by like a straight white guy. They've made like a lot of tweets to the effect that like they just like shitting on straight white debate bros, right? And I don't love that, but on one hand, I understand like the concern. I think that there are people who are concerned in the community that like discussions about marginalized people are being driven by people who fundamentally don't understand them. And I think that's like a reasonable fear to have, but I feel like that is overstepped when you start actually taking materially adverse actions, which have a chance of like substantively harming people who are objectively doing good work, right? Like I haven't had any criticisms of your work aside from like some things we've already talked about, like the ableist rhetoric, but like, I don't know, you seem like you're doing good stuff and I want you to keep doing it. And otherwise, like, I don't mind, like I've told you before that I don't mind you like having a platform in this space. I see you as doing a lot of good work. So,
I appreciate that. And I think of you, I think the same of you likewise as well.
Thank you. I appreciate it. And so when I see someone's kind of taking this position, and unfortunately, like this also goes into, I had a conversation recently with a Vadim or Creationist Cat about like the use of the terminology of like the use of the term woke scold, right? On the one hand, like I understand like Korviday and other people's criticism that like this sounds very similar and it seems to be used very similar to like the SJW term back in 2016. Like I understand that concern, and I think if it's broadened too much and if we're not careful, it can certainly approach that point, right? On that same issue, I tend to be able to sympathize with you, especially like what, you know, considering what happened between like me and Essence of Thought. Like that is an instance where literally someone was trying to gatekeep me and you from like being able to engage in leftist discussion because we didn't adhere to like a high degree of quote unquote wokeness, right? Or like a certain identity or whatever you want to have, right? And in this sense, it's literally like a lot of criticism of someone just because like gatekeeping them from being able to lead leftist discussion because of like who you are.
Yeah, right? and they've engaged in both, and you were a victim of this a while ago with Essence of Thought, right? They've engaged in other dishonest tactics to try to kind of hurt you that are unrelated to their issue with you, right? So Essence of Thought went out of their way to keep saying, I'm your client over and over and over again, when you made it very clear that you don't have a law degree. I'm not your client. You don't give legal advice on your stream, like going out of your way because you don't want to get in trouble. And then they go out of their way to keep saying that over and over again. I mean, think like can we safely say what their intentions were there?
I don't want to assume, and I mean, like for me, the biggest thing was that I asked them to take it down, and I know that they were able to see it because I know that they checked their tweets and that it was visible, and they didn't, right? And they still haven't to this day, as far as I am aware. And I mean, the fact that they haven't shows me that regardless of whether or not they knew when they were going in that it was going to have a chance of harming me, the fact that they eventually were made aware of that and did not remedy what they had done by taking down their tweet kind of makes like it gives me a strong inclination of how they lean. And so when we're talking about like people generally and like using the term woke schools and possibly describing Korviday with that, again, like I don't want to paint people broadly because I feel like sometimes that leads to like overgeneralization, but there are certainly instances where I can see where people are coming from when you're using that descriptor, because like in this sense, again, like I want to be, because I don't want Korviday. I want to maintain this relationship. I'm trying my best to be impartial, but like on this argument, it certainly seems like you have a very reasonable take in using that descriptor.
Yeah, I don't know if I like the word woke scold that much because like I know its origin. I'm not like a linguistic absolutist. I think I was using I forgot what the other word was. Hold on, I'm getting rid of my blanket.
You're all good. You're all good.
It's getting into getting real late into the afternoon. The AC's having a hard time keeping up. I don't like the word woke scold. I think it's kind of nasty. But at the same time, I don't think this is scolding me for being not woke enough at this point. This is just hating me for whatever reason and then engaging in dishonest behavior to try to like harm my reputation. As a matter of fact,
that might be fair. That might very well be fair, right? But go on.
It's funny too, and I have more screenshots to back this up. Actually, a shit ton because I've been getting a lot of them. And I'll probably send them. I'd rather you didn't show them on stream though, because they show the not dox, but like the Discord name of somebody who does not want their identity public because they're involved with like they were in the server and they don't want to get harassment. Let's see. Damn, I had so many DMs where she messaged me this like yesterday. Or did she post it in... no, I think she posted it here. Never mind. Yeah, so it's funny because these same people who are like advocating for listening to the victim, right? Like, hey, listen to what this girl has to say. There's a lot on the line. Are also blatantly ignoring what everybody else involved has said, specifically laser focusing and only believing the girl who made the accusations, which I think is funny because if I scroll up to, she sent me a, she had an argument in another YouTuber named Tax server, or AnarchoTac, an argument with Jamie, person who's been, part of this like anti-breadtube thing, person who accused Peter Coffin of being like a pedo, had a big argument in Tax voice chat, or not voice chat, in his server. I found it in their server, and I don't recommend. I don't recommend showing this on stream, but this is a link. Actually, no, I don't, because I got express request from this girl not to send this out, so I'm actually not going to send you the
yeah, you can just describe me to the best you're able.
Yeah, she got into it, and I'm going to censor the names out of these, except for like those relevant, and publish these along with the videos, so you'll be able to see them eventually. She got into an argument with Jamie in the VC, or not in the VC, in the chat, in which Jamie says, "Lamau, I don't care. You're probably just a pig puncher fan." To this girl who said I was in it, like what you're saying is a lie right now.
Yeah.
And just actively lying, or actively just like trying to ignore the testimony of another girl who is involved because they really want to believe the damning accusations towards me, because this person already like openly hates me. I actually talked to No Comment Chick on her stream the other day, and this person was in chat and like actively gaslighting me. Like we ended up talking about my childhood abuse, and then this person was in chat saying, "Boo hoo, poor piggy," and it was like, okay, this is all right. Okay. These are the people I'm talking about here.
Okay.
But yeah, so these are the people that I've took issue with, and these seem to be the people that, while Korviday may not directly be in line with or directly be in engagement with, seems to fall within this community. This sort of like who I would call woke scolds back, right?
Yeah,
who are
we'll find
engaging
another word.
behavior.
Yeah, we'll find another word eventually. But to objectively describe the same, like this type of person.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So there was a few accusations I actually wanted to go over because I have evidence to debunk all of them. These are the ones that you hear flying around on the internet, and if you want, I would just like to debunk some of them.
Yeah, go for it. Speed round.
All right. So they took down, these are claims that she's made or that I've seen on Twitter. They took down my AD so I could join the NSFW section. This is a TOS violation. So in my Discord server, my fan Discord, the public one, we have a not safe for work section where you can just horny post, right? But you have to be verified 18 plus. And we go nuclear with making sure you're verified 18 plus. A lot of servers don't even do this. We make sure you have to send a moderator or an admin your ID that has like a date of birth on it. Now you can censor out your name or your address or anything else. We just need your date of birth. We just need to make sure you're not 18. We just need to make sure you're 18 or older.
Okay.
So yeah, we don't let any minors in. We made 100% sure nobody could get in. So I don't know why she brings this up as like a damning bit of evidence. It's not against TOS. It's literally just like the nuclear option in regards to ensuring everyone who's doing anything NSFW in my server in like my fan Discord is 18 or up. So they're like consenting adults doing whatever in there. Xanderhal started and so this girl started posting in the like nudes in the NSFW section, and this is basically where this comes from. Xanderhal started complimenting the pictures I posted in the NSFW section, and even though I wasn't attracted to him, I was flattered that a YouTuber I was a fan of liked these pictures. So this is like the biggest and most damning accusation towards me, because if she was a fan, this would be pretty problematic, because she was like, "Oh man, a YouTuber that I'm a fan of is liking my pictures," and that would be like really like manipulative and bad. But the idea that she was a fan of me and I was engaging in sexual behavior with her just isn't true. Like, there's quite a bit of evidence against the idea that she was a fan of me. She'd never shown up in a single live stream. She hadn't commented on a single video, and she hadn't really been active in my Discord server until we became friends. On top of that, the first live stream that she actually ever got into was after I became friends with her and was like friends with her for like a week, and she hadn't even made an account on my website until April 6th, which was well over a week into our friendship. As a matter of fact, I'll go ahead and send you a screenshot. I guess this would be easy for me to fake on my end, I'll admit, because it's from my website, but I mean, you'll have to take my word for it, I guess.
right.
Here's a screenshot.
Yeah, the way I handle this sort of evidence is that it's more a matter of weight, not like this is the way that they would say in the law. It's a matter of weight and not admissibility. I'll show it to my stream, and they can do with it what they will.
Yeah, so this is her her account on the website was called Based Spooky, and you can see it's still active. She hasn't like been banned or deleted. And this was her date of creation, April 6th, 2020.
Okay.
Spooky was already taken, so she had to go with Based Spooky. Yeah, so I don't believe that she was a fan of me. Also, she didn't behave like a fan of me in voice chat. There's a reason why I don't befriend fans, because generally they act in ways that are just not conducive with having like a friendship. There are very few people who were fans of me that I've gone on to become friends with. And it was usually because like I'd be super fucking bored. I'd be like, yo, does anyone play WoW? And then we would spend hours and hours and hours and hours in a voice chat playing WoW and like leveling together and talking before I would like consider them a friend, before like our relationship went from being like parasocial to like just a normal friendship, right? And you know, I'm friends with some of those people to this day, right? Like Emily, who is probably one of my closest friends these days and is one of the main admins of my server, started out finding my content. We started talking in Destiny's server, and now we've been friends for over a year, and she's one of my best friends.
Sure.
Also, I distinctly remember, and when you see the video, you'll be able to hear this from everybody else involved. We distinctly remember a time that we were all in VC, and she mentioned that she had just actually started watching one of my videos and thought they were pretty good. So, and this was well into our friendship. So, I don't know about the. We don't have screenshots of it because it was said in VC, but I mean, it's me and 4 other people saying this against her. So, don't think she was a fan of me.
Okay.
Just doesn't seem to be the case. And yeah, by compliments on like the nude she was posting in NSFW, it would literally, unironically, be me saying poggers. Just, yeah, okay. Yeah, I would just respond.
Yeah, I got you.
I don't know if like, here I can actually, because it's my #1 most used emote. There it is, right there in the DMs. Poggers. So,
wonderful.
Yeah, I mean, yeah.
Wonderful. Yeah, I think that like I'm gonna take a hard guess. I'm not sure if people can see this. I'll try and get it on screen. Yeah, on stream. I imagine just because of the overlap of our audiences that most people probably get what that reference is. So yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Go on. Yeah.
So here's another big claim that I've seen. Xanderhal asked to be invited to Spooky's server after seeing her nudes. Not true at all. Everybody else involved will also be debunking this. She invited literally all of us to her server. She asked me to join it, and whenever I was in the server, she would actively request, like do a big @ everyone or an @ here whenever she was like in VC and bored to get everybody to join the voice chat and talk to her, which is where like we did a lot of talking in her server. Because she would like @ everyone and be bored, and so I'd get in and I'd start talking to her, and I'd play like Metal Gear Solid 5 because that's what I was playing at the time, and we would talk. So it was pretty good. So yeah, no, this is just a blatant lie. She asked me to join. She's the one who I didn't even know the server existed until she asked me to join it.
Okay.
This is a big claim too. He promised me a place to live with him and his girlfriend.
Sure.
And he had me get vetted with her before joining the harem. He said he was serious too. Yeah, this is a claim she's been putting out there. So what actually happened was around this time, this was when coronavirus wasn't quite as bad, right? Me and my girlfriend were thinking about getting a place, and we had 2 options: an apartment in California, because this is as much as I could afford at the time, an apartment in California, or a nice place in Florida, because you know expenses are lower in Florida.
Sure.
Now the idea of her living with me never came up. And the idea of visiting one day came up because we were friends, and you know I offer the idea of visiting all the time to friends, but we never made like any concrete concrete plans. And as for like the vetting with my girlfriend, literally everybody that was in my girlfriend was in the friend group. At this point, we've been dating for 8 months, right?
Yeah.
My girlfriend was literally in the friend group of course she had to approve of it as well, because there was an NSFW section. And if I was going to flirt with that, if I was going to platonically, like in the non-romantic sense, just sexual sense, flirt with any of them, or they were going to even be in the group in the first place, everyone had to be cool with it. Those are the rules. If we were going to add a new friend to the group, we all had to know them. We all had to be chill. And we all had to agree unanimously on having them in there because there was an NSFW section. We couldn't have anybody in there that we weren't cool with. Like,
Right.
So this idea that I like had my girlfriend vet them is just, I don't know. I did used to joke, because the harem has been an on-running joke on my channel for a long time, well before this thing happened. I would joke, if you want to join the harem, send my girlfriend an application. And then they would go to Instagram and unironically DM my girlfriend. Like, hey, can I join the harem? And my girlfriend would be like, what? So this is just her kind of lying. I don't think this could be her misunderstanding stuff, but like this is not what happened.
Like, I mean, it seems like, again, like I usually take on good faith interpretations. I could see like a reasonable misinterpretation of like talking to everyone and making sure everyone is cool as like being vetted, right? Like I could see that as being like a reasonable way to misconstrue the intent of certain actions, right? Now, based on the totality of the evidence, does it seem as likely that that's what she actually believed? Probably not. It seems like there's like enough evidence that you present to me so far that I think it's pretty reasonable to say that like her moral character, her trustworthiness as a character's trait can be called into question. Again, like I leave that to my audience to really decide on their own. I'm just here to say kind of like what I think is a reasonable interpretation. And it seems reasonable to think that she wasn't being entirely truthful. So, you know, as we're going forward and she's making a lot of these claims, like it's good that you're providing evidence. It definitely helps your claims and, you know, you're being able to respond to her. But generally speaking, I'm inclined at this point to agree with you pending further evidence.
Okay. I appreciate that.
Yeah.
The next claim I've heard a lot from her was that it was extremely vague. I knew all the other women weren't ready. Explicitly, she said ready over and over again for a relationship, as though like she expected one in the future, like there was one coming, but it wasn't clear enough. And all I respond to with that is 2 screenshots, and I was asleep when this happened, but they managed to dig up these screenshots of an interaction between them. I can't send it to you because I haven't censored any of the names.
Okay.
But it was basically here, let me just give a few quotes, though.
Yeah,
so one of
for
them says, I wouldn't consider it a relationship at all, honestly. I'm not interested in long-distance relationships with people I've never met in person. I also have my own life outside of Discord. The way I see this is that we're all just hanging out and chatting and stuff, but there's an NSFW section. That's how my understanding of things is, at least. And then another one said, yeah, unless I plan on meeting up with any of you, I wouldn't call it a relationship. And then Spooky, the girl who's done these accusations, her response to this, and if I had seen this, because I didn't see this interaction when it happened, I didn't see this until after the drama started and we were getting screenshots to debunk these things. If I'd seen this would have been a big red flag.
Sure.
She said, why are tears randomly coming down my face? I'm not even sad. That was her response to those.
All right. That's weird and random, and I don't see how that. Yeah, go on though.
That was her response to them saying that it's not a relationship, like explicitly saying I'm not dating any, like this isn't a relationship. So
that's her saying that she's crying, but she's not actually sad or beat up over it.
Yeah, but I don't know how to interpret. Why are tears randomly coming down my face?
Yeah,
I'm not even sad.
It's a lot of mixed signals, and it's very hard to take like it's hard to get an accurate read on what they believe in that moment.
Yeah, it's really hard to like know, but this is her actively acknowledging that multiple people said this is not a relationship. This is just a group chat. We're just friends.
Yeah,
it just has an NSFW section. Here's one that's been like really damning for me. He would beg for nudes, beg for boob pics constantly. He wasn't subtle about it. This is a blatant lie. So literally everyone involved is going to call her out for this one because she was notorious for being unbelievably insistent on trying to get me to post nudes. Not in a way that made me uncomfortable necessarily, even though I said no a lot. I was like, the deal was, if she wanted me to post any nudes, I had to get a Valorant key. For the game Valorant. It's a popular game by Riot. And the way that you would get it is you'd have to stay in like Twitch streams of people playing Valorant, and you'd have a chance of a key dropping, and you would get the game. And I eventually did get one, so I did eventually post nudes, but they're gone now, so nobody in chat, don't get excited. But ironically enough, I would never beg for nudes from her because she posted them daily. Like it was like clockwork almost. Like I would wake up around this time, around like 5 p.m. and I would go to my computer and she would have posted like 3 things in the NSFW section of every server she's in. She would post it in my server. She would post it in the Harem server. She posted it in her server. And from what I've been told, she would post them in the NSFW sections of other servers as well. They weren't like unique to this server. She posted them so much that there would never been an instance where I needed to ask. The most that might have ever happened would I would facetiously say, booby? In the same way that I would like type poggers after she did type something. Like it was always like one word things, and it was like twice. Ironically enough, everyone else could back this up. She's the one that was begging for me to post nudes. And she literally like, yeah. So I have screenshots of this as well. Cannot post them because you know, I need to censor names, but I can just say some of the things that I can read off some of the things that were said.
Yeah.
Listen, I'm interested in seeing it, but I'm not spooky levels of interested. Haha. Stop stalling. I don't care. Just send. Is spooky cooming already? Lamau. What else? These are from Spooky. It's all mine, my, then cummies, but with an X at the beginning, referencing me. So
sure.
This gives me the impression that maybe I wasn't begging for nudes, maybe she was. Also, everyone else was there, so they're gonna back that up. Yeah.
It's really interesting, and I mean, I think that you've given me enough evidence for me to be. I mean, like, I want to tie this back into the original sort of discussion about like, so the debate between you and Korviday, right? About how all of these like, it seems like a lot of these claims sort of like they were an issue in and of their own right, that people were, you know, that there was someone or people spreading misinformation around you, right? Like that's obviously an issue. It's hard, and especially when you are a person with a large platform and it can, you know, go to harm, you know, your platform and how people see you, right? Like obviously that's an issue in its own right. It's hard when other people sort of amplify that, when you have other like larger content creators who go and amplify that. And so for me, hearing all this, and I'm glad that you were able to provide me with sort of this context and this evidence, because like I think that a lot of people, like, this seems like something with like a lot of very specific facts and a lot of circumstances that are not going to be available to the average person, right? Like this is a lot of context that is not going to be able. So I'm really looking forward to your video coming out. I'm really looking forward to that coming out and being able to just like have all of that sort of like laid out very concretely, very just like, you know, kind of put this to rest. Because when you're talking about the difference, and again, like for the debate between you and Korviday, it is sort of unfortunate that you all weren't able to talk about this, because it seems like, and I want to be sure. So Korviday, as we were talking about, like this was sort of like the thing. This was sort of the thing that started the drama between you and Korviday, was like around this harem sex cult allegations, right? Like that's sort of what
defensive thought slime,
yeah. Like if that's sort of what started things between you two, and you eventually had a debate, then I don't see it to be unreasonable to expect that that would be a major topic of discussion, and for that to sort of just be left off the table completely, and then focus in on something, which, mind you, like and again, like here I'm sort of playing both sides in that, like we've already talked about like Korviday's arguments about like the ableism language. I feel like we've sort of put that to rest. I think we can move on from that. And
I should say, regardless of Korviday's intentions, the ableism arguments I thought were pretty good. I'm somebody who likes to pride myself on being right. Even though I think he was in bad faith, he still made good points. So, you know, I came out of that debate a better person, even if I wish I had like really, though I wish I had done things differently and maybe insisted on talking about his claims towards me. I'll talk to Treadlogic about it, or I'll have Treadlogic watch the video. But I feel like if Treadlogic knows the actual context and knows like what happened, he'll be like, "Oh, sorry about that. Like I didn't know. I just thought that this was very different." Sure.
And specifically, how Korviday seems, I mean, like has gotten. I mean, very, like, it's kind of crazy for me, right? Because I've always known Korviday as sort of like this super chill, level-headed kind of person on Twitter, and it seems like they've taken like a very different turn. And they've been sort of prideful in that, you know, they have made it out to be that they have been able to speak up more, and they see it that they've been able to sort of create more confidence in other people to be able to speak up. And I think that like on one hand, I want to be able to, you know, advocate for people to be able to speak up, to be able to, you know, be able to defend themselves and other people. Like I'm always for that. I want to make sure that we're always creating more opportunity for discussion and constructive criticism than less, right? But I also want to make sure that we're doing so in a way which is actually like genuinely constructive, right? Not to say that people have to like engage in respectability politics, but when you are trying to actually instill like when you're actually trying to get like genuine change out of someone who you want, like who is sharing your community, right? When you're trying to get like a genuine change in perspective or content or rhetoric or what have you, right? It's always better to try and approach it from like a perspective of good faith, to not like insult them, or if you're going to insult them, like do so sparingly, right? It generally does not help your case. And to come from a position of, hey, you know, we're disagreeing on this, but like fundamentally we share the same goals. I just want to make sure that we're sharing the same means of achieving those goals.
Yeah, I agree with that. I mean, at the end of the day, my main issue is just that I feel like there's a lot of people who dislike me for a variety of reasons.
Sure.
Maybe it's because they take issue with, you know, my rhetoric being problematic and whatnot, and then they're willing to go after me on things like this.
Mm-hmm.
You know, that's really what's upset me about the Korviday situation particularly, right? And why I don't think Korviday is in good faith, because even after hearing all this evidence, he was still in chat saying, I don't care, and then left once the evidence started to mount up to a point where he couldn't reasonably continue to believe this girl's accusations and defend his actions, right? And also, I know that they're like, I think in cahoots would be a bit far, but I mean, she admitted that they've been in DMs and they've been talking, so I get the feeling that
I won't speculate, but I can see why you would definitely think that.
Yeah.
Again, like this is hard because where I want, like the thing that I want to come from this, right? Because now I've sort of talked with you, and I feel like this has been a very constructive conversation. I would still like, again, like if Korviday ever watches this, I'm totally open to talking with them and to sort of like getting this, like I want this to be constructive. I want this to be a constructive conversation. And so to the extent, I feel like the logistic want, like the, you know, the requests, you could say, from Korviday, like asking you to change your rhetoric and like to be more considerate of like how your rhetoric affects people. Like, I mean, they sort of got that, right? Like it seems like they were successful in that front. And so like, I don't really see any outstanding issues on like what they could ask from you, right? I see it more at this point, like the ball is sort of in their court, that, you know, it seems like they have, you know, to a decent extent, based on the evidence that you've shown me, been at least complicit in misrepresentation of everything that we have talked about. And I'm not sure if an apology is the right solution. I'm not sure if just backing off is the right solution. I'm not sure if having more discussion is the right solution, right? But it is important to just kind of recognize that, like, it seems like, at least to some extent, they were probably, and again, like, I'm trying to be constructive, like at Korviday, if you're watching this, like I'm just trying to approach this from the perspective of creating unity, or at least some solidarity, or, you know, whatever. It seems like you may have been complicit in some misrepresentation, and that's not cool, you know? And I wouldn't ask, and I don't know like what you think of Xanderhal personally, but, you know, I wouldn't ask that you treat any other leftist content creator like that. So that's sort of my thoughts on it, at least based on this conversation.
Yeah, I mostly agree with that. At the end of the day, I'm just excited to get this video out. I'm gonna try to get it out to as many people as possible. I'm going to be probably all day going to be censoring like up to 100 screenshots, because I have to censor out names and stuff like that. I want to keep it as like little edited as possible, because, you know, it kind of looks suspicious if they're like edited a lot, and people might nitpick at that. But there's people who don't want their names seen, and then obviously, can we finish it off with a good meme, a pretty good meme of an accusation that happened?
Go for it.
This is probably the funniest one because of how it actually went. It sounds bad when you hear the accusation, but the explanation makes it sound a lot better. Xan posted a dick pic and made it into an emote in the server. Not only did I not make it into an emote, not only was I not even capable of adding emotes to the server, but obviously, you know, Spooky herself had asked extensively to see that. It was the owner of the server, who I will not name, that made it into an emote. And then Spooky herself was the one who spammed it constantly. And I have screenshots that I did censor. So if you want to see her spamming it, completely censored and safe
I'll take you at your word and let you you talk about that in your video. I'll take you at your word.
Yeah. I'll be showing the censored thing on screen. But yeah, it's the funniest thing too, because like the way it's been warped is like Xanderhal made his dick into an emote so he could easily send it to fans. And it's like, okay, this doesn't make sense on several levels. Oh god, this drama. I'm so excited to put this drama to bed because it's been really, really it's been stressful for everyone involved, including myself, and people who take other issues with me have been like hinting about it or taking jabs at me about it. And then then whenever I get them on stream, they pull the, ooh, I don't want to talk about it. You know, I don't really know if I want to platform that discussion, you know, for respect out of the person making the accusation. It's like, okay.
Yeah.
So yeah, it just feels good to talk to you about it because I was worried that because you definitely didn't have this information, and you know, so I'm glad I was able to sort of enlighten you on what actually happened.
Yeah, I mean, like for me, whenever I see drama like this, or especially serious allegations, I generally suspend my judgment until evidence begins to reveal itself, right? Like I always try to take, as level-headed and as, objective as an approach as I can, right? Because I don't want to just like take someone's sides just because I like them. And I hope that doesn't mean someday that you end up on the wrong side of it and I end up like disliking something. Well, I mean, like, I've actually criticized you. I shouldn't say that because like I've criticized you several times before and like it's gone over fine between us, so actually I'm not too worried about that. But yeah, like whenever something like this comes up, I do try to be as level-headed as I can. So no, it's totally fine. Thank you for sharing all the evidence with me. For me and how I think through these things, it made me feel a lot better.
Yeah, well, I had a fun time talking to you, and I think you're probably one of the most reasonable people I've talked to, and your criticisms have always been, like, I've always liked your videos and recommended your videos where you critique me to my fans and stuff like that, because I think that you do good work, and your videos are constructive and in good faith. Yeah.
All right, well, hey.
Would you want to play some Sea of Thieves, like we planned?
Yeah. Hey, listen, let's set it up. We'll do it either... we'll plan for it like within the next couple weeks, right? Like we'll make it happen, all right? I'll just message you. I've just been busy lately. I literally started up 2 jobs this week. I started up one doing a research job for a dean at the law school, and the other, it's super cool and I love talking about it, but I can't talk about specifics. I'm working for the organized crime division of the Maryland Attorney General's office. So like that's super fun. Like I'm literally working on like conspiracy cases, right? Like it's the coolest shit. But yeah, so that's been eating up a lot of my time this week. But yeah, we'll make it happen, all right?
Hell yeah. Well, I'm excited. I usually do like just gaming streams like around 5 p.m. Most streams that I do.
That's perfect.
Because I like to space out my politics streams. So if you ever just like see I'm live playing, I might play Sea of Thieves or something and say, hey, you want to play some Sea of Thieves? I'll bring you in. We can play some.
Yeah, sounds great to me. All right. Well, hey, thank you for coming on. It's been a really good talk.
Alrighty. I'll talk to you later.
All right. Bye.
See ya.
That was a good chat. That was a long chat. Also, let me go ahead. I don't know why, but my studio, like the number of people who are watching it, it doesn't update organically. I have to refresh the screen every single time. So let me just go ahead and check real quick. 102. Oh, damn. 102. Hey, what's up, fam? Stick around for a little bit. We're having another guest on pretty soon here. We're going to have a Jangles Sciencelad who literally just debated Sargon of Akkad. So that's going to be a really cool discussion. And that's probably how we'll wrap out the night, but we're going to have one more decent discussion. Riley is going to make a lot of enemies because the Wokelets hate even my... I'll say going forward, and I've said this probably before in like different variations. Yeah, I know, I really don't do short. Listen, I'm an extrovert. I talk a lot. It's... not a problem. I've got it figured out, right? It's fine. Everything is fine. But no, so like I don't want to, and I probably won't use like wokelet or woke scold terminology just because like I talked about in the stream with Vadim, right? While I think that there is some merit to like an objective descriptor of someone who unreasonably gatekeeps leftism behind like a high standard of wokeness. I think that like while I think that there are like a category of persons that fit that description, I tend to agree that like the term woke school, just like how it sounds, like probably isn't the greatest. So I don't know. I'll wait until a new term starts circulating, but otherwise I'll just try to avoid it. We love you. Thank you. I mean. I appreciate that you're all here, and I appreciate that you like the discussion. Obviously, like, this is a very sensitive subject. Like, actually recently I've been engaging in like a lot of very sensitive discussions, right? Things which, you know, if I'm not careful, then I will, you know, I might offend the wrong type of people, and I don't want to, right? I'm being very careful that like I'm trying to engage with as much as I can in a very constructive way, right? And I want to be able to have these conversations. I want to be able to understand where people are coming from, and I want to be able to like try to remedy these sorts of issues. So that means I probably will be playing with fire just a little bit. Today was arguably like having Xanderhal on. There might be people who very well could criticize me for that, and I am sorry that they will. But it's important, right? Like I hate to see division in, you know, the online leftist space, the community, and, you know, to the best I'm able to the furthest extent that I am able to, being someone with a platform, even if small, it is big enough where I'm able to interact with these sorts of content creators, and I want to be able to do the best that I am able to with that. With that, Jangles, if you are listening, I'm going to take a short break and get some water and use the restroom. If you want to join the waiting room in my Discord, then I will bring you in as soon as I am back. So, take 5. What can I play real quick? I'll play like some snazzy music. Is this decent? Hello there. Hey, how are you? All right. It seems that Jangles is here. So let's go ahead and bring him in. Hello, Justin.
Hello.
Hey. Oh, hold on. Let me see if I can. I'm not sure if I'm able to show your Discord on my screen, but I can see you. So how are you doing?
I am doing okay. Made the mistake of looking at comments on Sargon's side, but you know.
Wait. Hold on. What? Yeah, I mean, like, there's so much I have to ask you about. So, first, context. You just had a debate the other day. I watched a little bit of it, but like the first hour or so is just like you literally waiting around. So like that was a lot of wasted time. But all right. So tell me first, like just to like explain to the audience, right, who may have not seen the video. So what did you debate? Who did you debate? And like the general what happened.
Okay. Well, first of all, hello everyone, and hopefully not
and
goodbye.
Yourself. Yeah.
Yeah. So hello everyone, and hopefully not goodbye to people who just wanted to tune in to listen to the Xanderhal dramas and fun stuff like that. My name is Justin. I go by Jangles Sciencelad on YouTube and SJW Debates on Twitter. And I just fulfilled like this sounds really pathetic because it sort of is a little bit. Fulfilled a dream I had when I first got into like online like debatey spaces of debating Sargon and V alongside actual Jake, who runs the Twitch channel, you know, actual Jake or Papa Bird Jake, and as well as formerly of like Bible Reloaded and now Hannah and Jake on YouTube.
Mm-hmm.
That was really long. I'm sorry.
No,
we just debated. Get this, we narrowed it down. We just debated progressivism, leftism, and social justice.
Awesome.
Like
awesome.
all of it, the entire concept.
Holy crap. Okay, I actually made all right, I got it to work out so that now we're both on the screen. So yes, I figured it out. So all right, you debated Sargon. It was progressivism, leftism, and what was the last one? Something spaces?
Social justice.
Social justice. Okay. So give me the quick TLDR and then we'll go into specifics. So how'd that go over? The quick like 10-second, 20-second synopsis.
The quick TLDR is that we talked about like American identity, transgender stuff, and then I got him at the very end to talk about grooming gangs in England.
Wow. All right. That's a lot of ground to cover. That is a lot of ground to cover.
It was a 4-hour conversation, and since we had to wait an hour, it was a 5-hour stream for both of us.
Holy crap. Okay. So I didn't get that sounds like a lot. So we'll work through a little bit of it. All right. So first I just want like your immediate takeaways. Like how do you feel that you did sort of coming out of that? So that was your first time debating someone as large as Sargon of Akkad, right?
I debated Count Dankula before. I think.
Okay. Yeah, that's pretty. All right, that's a pretty decent size. Okay, so yeah, I'll totally give it. Let me first ask you for how do you think that he represented him? So mind you, I'm going to be asking you a lot of questions. Some of them will seem like very simple, but I didn't get to see all of it. So I just want your opinion. Like, how do you think he represented himself in a debate?
Sargon?
Yeah.
I think, well, he did about as well as he usually does.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of smug chuckling, a lot of he seems to not want to talk about empiricism and data very much. I don't know if he did before, but in the debates I've watched in the past like 2 years, he really doesn't like talking about data. And I don't want to ascribe any sort of like malicious intent to that, but I think it's because a lot of the data that's is out there just contradicts with his opinions.
Yeah,
and I fully recognize that I'm probably too up the empiricism route, and I probably rely on that a little too much just because it's how I'm wired, and I could work on that. But also, like, if we have disagreeing opinions, it would be nice if we could like present evidence to back up our sides, and he just didn't seem to be willing to do that.
No, but I mean, like, I'm inclined to agree, right? I mean, when I think about debating, for me, like, I'm always, and mind you, this goes to how I debate, right? But I always make sure that any question I have, I am able to tie any answer that I don't want. I'm able to sort of counter that with some other form of evidence, whether it is empirical or scientific data, or whether it's like if I'm questioning someone about like their statement and they say, "Oh, I actually said X." I want to be able to be like, "Oh, you're saying that you said X. Well, actually, I have like a written record saying that you said Y, right?" Like I always want to be able to make sure that if I'm asking something, that I'm able to tie back something that I want to support to some sort of empirical data. So it's weird to me. Like I actually did notice that a little bit. So I remember there's a point where Sargon tried to make the argument that, well, that you can get information from different sources of data, right? I think that he made that sort of an argument. And I'm trying to remember, like, how did you, like, what was the general response to that? Because I mean, like, as I was, or sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, it's tough. Like the general response to like he just I don't even want to like walk it back to. We're talking about philosophy. We're talking about definitions. We're talking about a priori notions of what it means to be an American.
Mm-hmm.
Stuff like that. I didn't. It's always tough to like. In my opinion, in all the debates I've had, it's almost I never get a good sense of how I did, just because like there have been debates where I thought I really, really underperformed that people like still point to say like this is where like Justin destroyed his opponent.
Yeah.
And there are debates where like I thought I actually did really, really well, where the comments under the video is just like 90% downvotes and calling me certain words that I'm sure that you would not like to be repeated on the YouTubes. So
yeah. On that front, I sort of noticed. So like I took a quick look at just like the dislike ratio to your video. I think that the last time I saw it, it was like 150 it was like 150 likes, like 50 dislikes, like it was a pretty substantial number of people who came and disliked. Do you think that the majority of that is probably like people who like supported Sargon or the other person who was like arguing on his side?
Yeah, it's impossible to say, right?
Yeah.
And it could genuinely be people who like found me as like a neutral party and they just came in and just didn't like me. So I need to like at least entertain that notion, but a lot of them were using like language that is suspect, if that makes sense. Like one person just said, "Oh, you're gay? Dislike video."
Wow. All right. Yeah, that's not great. Not exactly great in the slightest. That was one thing that I was sort of worried when I was watching it, is that like especially like, so you mentioned that you talked about trans issues. I didn't see that part of the debate. I was a little bit rushed for time before starting this. For things that we can talk about, actually we can talk about that later when we're off screen. It's kind of cool, but separate but unrelated story. But yeah, so it is always a little concerning for me in the same way. And I talked about this a little bit with Xanderhal, right? Like I don't mind people who are not trans talking about trans issues the same way I don't mind, like, like obviously there's a lot of issues in the world and there's going to be a lot of issues which involve people from different marginalized groups. And so it's not as if you can only have like people who are from those marginalized groups participate in that conversation, right? Because you're going to gatekeep a lot of people who like can meaningfully contribute to the discussion. But it does introduce sort of a concern that like you're going to exclude sort of the lived experience from the discussion if you don't include like one's trans voice. So like it does sort of raise a concern when you have like 4 cis white dudes talking about like trans people, right? Like I could very easily see like that sort of a fear. But how do you feel like that?
Very valid.
Yeah.
I feel like that's a very valid concern to bring up. It's why when I'm usually talking about trans issues, that's why I really, really want to focus on empirical data, because that's not subject to any sort of like personal lived experience.
Yeah, no, and I really do appreciate that. So how do you think that discussion went over when you were talking about trans issues?
Yeah, and again, I'm not the best judge of this because I agree with our points and I disagree with their points.
Right.
Take this with a massive grain of salt, but I thought it went really well for us. We got them to concede on a lot of topics. They couldn't really ground their axioms, if you know what I'm saying.
Interesting.
Interesting. We got them to admit like gender is a spectrum and things like that. We got them.
No, I mean, like that's an awesome concession, right? I mean, like when you're able to get like major things like gender is a spectrum, like that's usually like a big talking point, especially here among people who are trying to advocate for like traditional values, right? When you're talking about trying to preserve like Western culture and Western civilization, like a big part of that, especially as far as like trans people are concerned, is like this idea that like gender is this immutable quality and it's necessary for the preservation of like the family structure, and we need to maintain it, or else like if that starts coming apart, then like Western civilization as we know, is going to start like collapsing at the seams. Yeah. So I mean, like that's a really good concession that you're able to get out of them, right? Like I feel like that's good.
To be fair, it was a little more complicated than that, but we got so the way it came up, the Surfs actually tweeted this clip out. Basically, Sargon and I'm not gonna say any like bad words, but I wanted to use a little bit of sexualized language.
Okay.
He was basically saying that if you're a man and you can't perform, then you will probably feel like less of a man. You know, a normal thing for a classical liberal to say.
What?
And both of us kind of, yeah, I know. And both of us kind of jumped on that and said like, oh, what are you saying? Like you can like feel like more or less of a man? That's awesome. I'm glad you realized that you can feel like more of a man.
Hey, there you go.
You can
Hard
feel
pivot.
like all the way down the spectrum if you really want to. Fantastic. I'm glad we got here.
Damn, that's actually really good. I didn't even think to go there, but that is that's a great pivot. That's a great pivot.
Yeah, you could get real specific and say, well, actually, they're talking about masculinity and not gender identity and stuff like that. So there are some specifics there, but
Sure.
I think a lot of it, there's something to be said that a big insult from people who are kind of like on that side is like they'll insult, if you're a man, they'll insult your masculinity. If you're a woman, they'll insult your femininity. And this ties in a lot to like to their notion of like, this actually, believe it or not, ties into like their notion of like American identity and identity as in general, is that unless you perform these certain actions with these certain qualities, you are not allowed to be of this identity, which was really interesting to me.
That is interesting. I mean, like essentially, like it's a gatekeeping function, right? It's essentially trying to gatekeep this identity behind like certain criteria. The problem that I suppose I see immediately with that is that like when you start implementing criteria for identity, it's always going to be extremely subjective according to like what the person who is making the criteria thinks is appropriate for representation of whatever the group is, right?
Yeah. One of the biggest mistakes I made during the debate is that I didn't fully understand what a priori meant, and my like
what is that?
coach,
I don't know that.
Well, do not take my word for it, because I just I had a talk with my like pseudo debate coach, who's like a PhD candidate at Berkeley.
Oh shit!
Who,
damn, that's awesome.
Who like has a degree in like gender studies and philosophy and things like that. So, yeah, she was not happy with my performance in the first like third of the debate. Just because like so I thought a priori was something akin to like prior to experience. You know, like this is true before you experience it as true, or something akin to that. So like numbers, the concept of a triangle, things like that.
Okay.
And he was technically wrong when he said there's an a priori notion of what it means to be an American, because that is nonsense, and I jumped on it being nonsense. But when I was explaining why it was nonsense, it was obvious that I was like incorrect in my definition of a priori myself. So
sure. It's it just got to be like really messy. Like he clearly said something wrong, but you also like use like wrong language in explaining why he was wrong. So you were both wrong, and it's just like a lot of wrong. Yeah, that makes sense.
A lot of wrong. It was a ball of wrong that just rolled downhill and gathered more wrong as it went.
Yeah, no, I mean, like, and I get that, and that can be that's very difficult to deal with in the middle of the debate, right? Like, when you have that sort of an issue, especially if it's like a very damning point that they can't deal with, a lot of people will tend to like focus on the fact that you're wrong instead of like actually acknowledging that they were wrong, and that was like what spurred on you being wrong, right?
Oh yeah,
and it can be like a
way. I didn't. Yeah, the thing is, like during the debate, though, I didn't feel like that. I feel like I was like on point with my assumptions, but so. Maybe that'll fly over a lot of people's heads, but I'm admitting right now on stream that I was wrong on a priori. Don't listen to me on that, but do a little bit of studying yourself, and you'll still see that we were both wrong.
Yeah, no, and I totally get that. And I'll say right here, and sort of going on that point about like watching your video and being able to subscribe to it. Hey, everyone who's watching right now, we have over 100 viewers. That's super awesome. You should totally go and you should watch Justin's stream. You can find it at Jangles Sciencelad. And hey, maybe like leave a like in the comment there, like help out another leftist. But anyway, moving along.
Thank you.
Yeah, no problem. Might as well. Hey, listen, that's whatever I can do to help other people, might as well. But yeah, so sorry, so go on. So that was one aspect of your debate that you had that you probably could have done better on. So you talked about that, you talked about trans issues, you talked about American identity,
about LGBT ideology and what's happening in Poland and things like that. Now that was like the one point in that one issue. Overall, in the whole American identity issue, I think me and Jake did fairly well. And it was really weird like hearing like two people who are not from America tell us what it means to be an American.
That is weird. That's actually like really weird. Yeah,
it's a little bit weird. And it depends on whose audience is listening. So I'm not taking too much stock in that. In the LGBT ideology like section, like Poland doesn't want LGBT ideology pushed on their children, and I thought like our like attacking of that as like this weird like no, that's just an excuse. They're freaked out by gay people.
Yeah.
If you ever watched.
Remind me, because I'm a little familiar. They've tried to implement like anti-LGBT zones in their in the country, right? Or you can correct me if I'm wrong. Can you go ahead and explain a little bit of context?
Yeah, just from what I understand in Poland, the primary party that's in charge right now is like the Law and Order Party, and they are explicitly, unabashedly anti-LGBT. They're describing like LGBT ideology as a foreign influence invading Poland to try to dismantle the family. It's like a form of cultural Marxism. So, oh my goodness, Gamergate made its way into like
mainstream politics,
the world politics. Isn't that nice? And I'm unclear as to like what actual laws has been passed, but it's heavily like socially encouraged to like. So, for example, there was a really upsetting documentary that they made about a pride march in Poland that was just assaulted and abashed by like football hooligans. They described it like who just chanting like "fu f slur" or whatever the Polish equivalent of f slur is. That's how they translated it. Like calling women who were out there holding pride flags like horrible names. So it's really like socially it's being more and more accepted to like be really horrendous to gay people and suppress their freedom of speech and make sure they're not comfortable expressing who they are in public, which seems like it'd be something that a free speech advocate would be like up in arms against. But actually he made a video completely like endorsing like the Polish like opposition to quote unquote LGBT ideology, and every time he like talked about what that meant, they always had to bring it back to like child drag queens dancing at strip clubs. Like they had to go to like one example that happened like once or twice on Netflix in order to make a strong case for themselves.
Right.
And Sargon like wouldn't answer like, hey, if there's like two men kissing in like a Disney movie and it's like just a regular Disney style kiss, is that sexual? Is that like sexualizing children? Like it took him an hour to admit that or something like that.
Yeah, and I mean like the big problem about this is that I mean like people like it's very strange to me when people want to make this argument that the LGBT I don't know, that there's this LGBT agenda or ideology that's trying to sexualize children, right? When literally straight people have been like pushing the same sort of propaganda, except just like the straight version for like as long as we've had like fucking Barbie dolls, like most of like Disney, like a lot of Disney cartoons back in the day, like they're Jessica Rabbit. Oh my god, they're the Roger Rabbit
Space Jam.
Yeah, Space Jam. Yeah, like there's all these different movies, different movies. Yeah, Lola. There are like all of these different characters, all of these different movies, like from like the earliest parts of our childhood, which are just like overly sexualizing, especially like women, but like men as well, right? Like this is something that's been happening for like as long as we can remember. It's just that we haven't had a problem with it because it's been like a straight narrative, and now the second that we start to be like, hey, maybe like we should include gay people or trans people or bi people or whoever, right? Like maybe we should include some more representation of other people. Now it's like, they're sexualizing our children.
Sexualizing.
And I'm sorry, I just can't treat that. Like I just can't like treat that legitimately because like it's so hypocritical, right? It goes against like everything that we know about children. Like if you want to make that argument, then sure, then we got to do a lot of other shit first. Like first and foremost, we got to fucking banish, like we got to ban like Barbie dolls or like completely reform those from the bottom up, right? Like there's so many other things. Like we got to completely reform like how we do like children's toys. We got to be able to reform like how we do a lot of children's TV shows and content, a lot of movies, boy bands.
Maybe let's get it like the child beauty pageants.
Oh my god, yes. No, that's probably the funniest thing because like they care a lot, and mind you, like I have mixed feelings about like the children drag queens, right? But like if we want to talk about like that, I mean, like if we're gonna say that that's wrong and we're gonna say that that's morally admonishable, then we better damn well sure that like putting children in like beauty pageants who are like less than 10 years old against their will, like by like parents who are trying to fulfill like some fantasy that they weren't able to live out in their own childhood, that shit's got to go too. Right? Like that shit's got to go too. And that's been around a lot longer.
And it never caused an uproar in these like super conservative countries. That wasn't the Western influence that they were concerned about.
Right. So I mean, like, yeah, I tend to agree that it's just like, I don't know. Whenever someone starts to bring up like whenever someone unironically says the phrase LGBT ideology, like I definitely have to raise a couple eyebrows, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, so I can understand how that would have been very frustrating, and I can understand how he probably tried to dance around the question, right?
I think we performed well, and there are basically 4 sections. If I was going to try to divide it up as best as you can, the first was about American identity, and I would give us like a C+ on that one, and then like LGBT ideology and what's going on in Poland, I would give us like an A-. Trans stuff, I would give us an A. And then like at the very end, I thought was like the biggest slam dunk is like that thing I did a ton of research for, the Muslim like grooming gangs, about like basically forced him to admit that he was lying, and he just like ran away from it.
Damn. That's crazy.
That was nice.
I wasn't following. I didn't follow that like specific that. Like I didn't know that he put out like content.
You didn't watch a 4-hour stream before you talked to me.
I
Riley.
know,
Come on.
I know. I'm sorry. Listen, I was having like a really good time with someone over the last day or so. So like again, we'll talk about that like individually off stream. But
That's
yeah,
okay. You don't want to ruin it by like subjecting yourself to that.
yeah. But no, it's good that you're able to have this discussion. So all in all, coming out of it, do you have any major takeaways? Like, how do you like? What are your major sort of like learning points coming out of there? Like, especially talking to me as someone else who does sort of debate content here on YouTube.
My biggest takeaway is that I rely too much on like studies, not because that they're not extraordinarily valuable, but just because rhetorically, if I'm trying to talk to somebody who didn't reach their conclusions with data, what data am I going to bring out to like sway them? So I need to be better at like forming like philosophical arguments and grounding like definitions and things like that. So, not everyone only cares about what like the academic research says. Some people just like want to feel a certain way, and that sounds like I'm admonishing it because facts versus feelings has been like this dumbest like narrative in internet politics for the past couple of years now. But no, feelings are enormously important. Some people are like genuinely like they feel certain ways, and that's fine. That's how we make decisions. Ultimately, it's not facts, it's how we feel about those facts. So I need to put more emphasis on like the feels arguments, for lack of a better term. And I need to research a little bit more about like a philosophy and like all the really, really boring stuff for when people bring up philosophical terms, and I'm like, I don't care, just tell me what you mean in like simple terms.
Just like make a philosophy friend. Just like go like to your local university and just like sit in like a philosophy class. I feel like that'd be fun. But no, I get what you're saying, right? Like, unfortunately, there are certain people where certain arguments aren't really going to hit home for them. Now, I respond one of two ways generally in those sorts of circumstances. Either I do try to sort of debate like on their terms. I try to avoid that though to the best of my ability if I'm able to avoid it, right? Like if the conversation is going decidedly philosophical or has like a philosophical slant, as it seems like yours kind of was, like you had a pretty broad range of subject matter, right? Like it wasn't like you were talking about something very specific and very empirical, right? Like it was just progressivism and leftism and, all of these like very broad categories. So of course, like philosophy is going to come up. Or it has like a very high likelihood of coming up, right? Unless you like stick to talking about like very specific instances and specific empirical data. But generally speaking, it bothers me from a rhetorical perspective when you have someone who fundamentally tries to dance around, like when you're talking about something very wishy-washy, like I don't want to call it wishy-washy, but sometimes like it can seem like it, like something very wishy-washy, like philosophy. At the end of the day, I'm not sure if there's really a way to quote unquote win on that, because when you're talking about something philosophical, it's always going to be like a difference in opinion, right? It's going to be like, well, I philosophically would categorize or see this thing as one way, and then you say, well, I see it for another way for reasons X, Y, and Z, and you may be able to persuade the audience depending on the merits of that claim, right? Like yours versus theirs. But at the end of the day, there's really nothing that you could say to them on that point which is going to like prove them wrong, right? Because this is ultimately like philosophy is like a subjective field, right? Like it's a very subjective analysis as compared to like an objective analysis.
Yeah, the only way you can really convince someone on those grounds is if you can demonstrate that they're applying their logic inconsistently.
Yeah, no, and I completely agree. And like that can be, and I mean like that's not impossible. Like definitely, on the point that you talked about earlier with masculinity and how gender can be on the spectrum, that is amazing. Like that is an awesome catch on the spot. So like that's got to give props to that. But that's like a great example, right? But otherwise, like you can't plan for that ahead of time, so it's very hard to be predictive going into these sorts of circumstances, right? Like you have to be able to just sort of realize that on the spot. And I mean, like part of that's just like the skill with being a debater, right? Like part of that's just like being able to get to the point where you are skilled enough at being able to like catch those off, those like very inconsistent statements where it's like the average reasonable person probably, they might let it fly. You've got to be able to be like, wait a second, hold on, that's inconsistent. I need to punish you for saying that, right? And so no, and I mean, like, I get that, but I definitely applaud you for being able to do that. For me, like, having a very broad debate is something I generally don't love to do. I like keeping it very specific, and like that is a lot harder to do. Like having it is
much harder. Like I've had debates where the terms were like far too narrow.
Yeah.
So basically, like, is the sky blue or not?
Yeah, exactly.
They want to like drill down like on like one fact that they had in their favor. Like, is this true or not? Debate me on this for 2 hours. Like, and then the exact opposite happens now. Like people want to talk about something extremely broad where they can like be really where they can talk a lot about like philosophy and Sargon wanted to stick to his strong suit.
Yeah.
Something that I do want to mention in the debate is, and this is something that is I think important, is that Sargon was in control of the call, and that's never advantageous to you.
Oh yeah, no, I'm quite aware.
So if your opponent is in control of the call, especially if it's like a 4-person discussion, he was in control of the call. He could mute anybody he wanted to. So it was like, and basically he set the tone like, we're going to do what I want because I'm the leader here.
I remember
that was a big disadvantage for us. But I still think we ended up coming out on top. Again, I'm super biased because I agree with us and not them. So I'm open to criticism. If I've gotten some really, really good feedback, both like the stuff that makes me feel good. I like being told that I'm a king and a legend. That's all really nice. But also like being like someone like, well, actually, you misunderstood this philosophical construct. Here's a resource that might help you better understand it. I really appreciate both.
Yeah. No, I mean, like, I definitely get that. So on the criticism aspect, I'm going to ask, again, people who are watching, go watch that debate, and like specifically the one on Jangles video, and you can provide comments there and provide some constructive feedback. So for me, sort of on like the call and being able to control the conversation, like, yeah, that is a super, it's a crazy, massive advantage that someone can have, right? And it can definitely be used to imply that you have like an unfair advantage if you're not careful. And this is something that I have certainly had to deal with as I'm navigating how I want to conduct debates, right? Because like so far I've had several debates and they've been on my channel, right? And like it's very easy to recognize that sort of power imbalance. Now, one thing that's been sort of nice, and this is something I sort of wanted to talk to you about, is like I'm going forward and figuring out sort of like how I recruit and like get debates rolling, like how I engage with them from the start. Something that was nice for me was the fact that like when I debated Mars, I was able to sort of justify having it on my stream because he wanted to debate in the first place, right? It was like he wanted to, so I was able to be like, okay, you want this to happen, well then it's going to happen on my terms, right? So it's sort of like an equivalence of exchange. How I'm thinking of going forward, right? And this is what I want to get your opinion on, because I don't want to turn into like, again, like I know that I don't fit the category of bro, right? Like I understand I fall outside of that categorization, but I'm just afraid, like I want to make sure I'm not like categorized as a debate bro or fall into that culture, but like still engage with debate content. And so here are my thoughts. Essentially what I'm looking to do is to start picking very specific videos that are put out by creators who I disagree with, and to a week ahead of time make a statement, probably on Twitter or something, like, hey, I'm going to be covering so-and-so, and at them in the tweet, right? So-and-so's video on X, Y, and Z. I'm going to be covering that on my stream, and if they want to, they can come onto my stream so that I can just ask all of my questions to them directly. That way I do not misrepresent anything that they say, and they can respond to any of my criticisms on the spot. That seems to be, like, I've thought about it a little bit, and that seems to be like the most, because that way, right, I can be able to talk about things that, I can be able to talk about things that I want to, but it's framed in such a way, like it's put in such a way where I am like giving them the opportunity to be able to make sure that I don't mischaracterize any of their statements or any of their arguments. And so that any criticisms that I do levy are counterbalanced and counterweighed against like their own responses to my arguments on the spot. Right. And that's sort of how I'm thinking about going it. Do you think that's like a decent way to sort of conduct myself?
I think that's about as good as you can possibly do it. Like you're letting someone know, like, hey, I want to be talking about this specific thing that you did, and responding to points that you made during it. You're welcome to come on the stream, and even if you don't, now you're aware of it. So I'm not doing this behind your back. So you avoid those accusations. So they can either come on stream and talk to you directly as you're doing it, or they can say, hey, I'm busy right now, but let's set something up in a week or 2 weeks or something like that. So I think that's a really healthy way to do it. It's much better than what I do because I am not good by myself. I'm a terrible streamer when I'm not debating or doing something along those lines. So I will do the debate bro thing and just like reply under somebody like, debate me on Twitter. You debate me.
Right.
It's worked a little bit. But...
I mean, like, hey, yeah, you've had a lot of great success. I'm definitely a fan of your content. So like, hey, like if results are results, where like credit where it's due, right? But yeah, no, like I definitely see that. And that's why I'm just trying to be very conscientious about this because like I think a lot, right? I hope that's apparent at this point. But like I want to make sure that as I'm going through this that, because like this is like sort of a very volatile subject matter for like convey, like as a way of like creating content, right? Like it's inherently like it's inherently adversarial, right? And there are a lot of parts that, you know, where you can take advantage of like certain things. And I have the added consideration of I literally, like, you know, I have like a very formal background and training in this, so I want to make sure that as I'm conducting myself, that I'm not doing so in such a way where people can like hold that background against me. Where they're like, oh, you just did well because you're trained to be a lawyer, or because you did debate or whatever. You don't actually know what you're doing. It's just you have all these good rhetorical skills, and it's like, no, I want to make sure that like I'm able to mitigate that by just being as honest and you know, like upfront as I can be at every step along the way, right? Both.
Yeah, you don't want to turn into like Ben Shapiro, who has you know, years and years of media training, and
Oh
he
my
looks really
God.
good debating like a kid who showed up terrified to be on camera.
Yeah,
Like-
yeah. No, I mean, like, that's exactly it, right? Like, not only, like, if we want to compare me to Ben Shapiro, because a lot of it, like, rhetorically, you could probably draw a lot of parallels between what we do, like, as far as, like, in the middle of debate, right? But, like, a big difference between this is that, like, we have a lot of very similar rhetorical skills, but, like, I actually recognize that there can be, like, ethical issues with employing some of them if I, like, intentionally misuse them or intentionally try to, like, mischaracterize other people's arguments or, like, try to misrepresent or, like, take advantage of other people or what have you, right? Like, I recognize that. And I'm not sure if he does or doesn't, but he definitely takes advantage of the fact that he has those skills against people who definitely don't. So it's definitely, like, it's something I am aware of because, you know, I try to be a good person. I'm trying. I try my best, okay? But yeah, so no, I definitely appreciate the input on that. Yeah, do you have any content coming up in the future? Like, do you have any debates or any future, like, anything that people should be looking out for?
It was feast or famine for like 3 months. Like for 3 months, I couldn't get a bite. I was like out there every day fishing, didn't get a bite. And then over the span of like 2 weeks, I had like 5 huge debates lined up. So I had like the Sargon debate that just happened.
Mhm.
I'm debating David Silverman, who used to be the president of like the American Atheists.
Wow.
Like,
All right.
He was on Bill O'Reilly, and
Mhm.
he's where the meme like tide goes in, tide goes out. You can't explain that. He's where that came from. I'm pretty sure.
Sure.
I'll be debating Dankula again. I'll be debating Jesse
shit.
Sengel, if you know who that is.
You're gonna be like shooting up, like, holy shit, everyone, like, watch this space. You're gonna be like shooting up in popularity over the next couple months. I'm so excited for you.
We'll see, or I'll crash. We'll see.
And I have every confidence in you. I hope that comment doesn't mature badly. No, I believe that I have every confidence that you'll do very well and that you'll represent the interest like very well, and everything will be fine and great and dandy. It's gonna all be sunshine and rainbows and happiness. So
awesome. I especially want it to be dandy. That's what, like, my main goal is to make sure things are dandy.
Yeah, no, I can get behind that. Yeah, well, I really don't have anything else that I want to cover specifically. Is there anything else you wanted to touch on?
I really, really like your stuff. I like I like what you do. I like your like rhetorical style. You're a really, really intelligent person. I'm like excited to like I don't know. I'm glad to know you. Glad to talk to you. I really want to talk to you about like rhetorical skill and like some of these debate tricks that I can use. You know.
Yeah. I mean, like, we can talk all the time. Obviously, I have my Discord, and everyone who's watching, I have a Discord link down below. But yeah, we can talk all the time down there. I'm usually pretty available if people at me. People, please don't at me. Please don't abuse that. I haven't made a rule about it yet. Don't make me make a rule.
Don't make me.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, I would totally be down to. Oh, and you know what we should totally do someday? Let's benchmark this. Let's do like a tag team someday. Like if it comes up,
that would be awesome.
Yeah, like if such the opportunity becomes available, let's make that happen.
That would
I feel like
super cool.
Yeah, that would be super, super cool. Do collabs and whatnot. Yeah, I love the idea. But yeah, thank you so much. I really appreciate it. And obviously, anyone who's subscribed to me, I would ask that you go subscribe to Jangles and watch his content and like, follow.
I don't just do debates. So if that's not something you're into, and trust me, that's fine. My husband hates debates. He hates them with every fiber of his being. It's not something everybody likes. I also do like scripted videos and things like that with lots of scientific sources and cats in the background. So
that's adorable. I just got a turtle recently, or tortoise, I should say, very specifically a tortoise. Thank you for recommending. Yeah, thanks for recommending the name. I'm pretty sure I actually ended up using the name that you recommended on Twitter. Even though, I mean, like, it's the full official name is Sir Shellington the Wise. It's Shelly. It's Shelly for short, and I like that. It's cute.
Which is fair.
Yeah, not very fair for a tortoise. All right. Well, hey, thank you for coming on. It's been great talking, and yeah, let's talk again sometime. All right.
Let's do it again soon.
All right. Sounds good. All right.
Bye, everyone.
Bye. Boop. Let's see. Yeah, I'm sorry. Yeah, we both talk fast. I mean, that's probably something that comes with the content, right? Also, just like it's been weird because like I found that recently I began talking really fast. Maybe it's like as I'm doing research for streams, normally what I'll do is I'll watch like if it involves like doing commentary on another stream, usually what I'll do is I'll play like that stream like at two times speed. So like I'm hearing a lot of discussion at like double normal talking speed, right? So I feel like that's sort of affecting like how fast I talk, which is good because like it's rhetorically, I mean like it depends on like what you're trying to do. If you're just trying to like own someone in a debate, like it's rhetorically useful because you put like you're able to articulate all the thoughts that you want quickly enough that they can't interrupt you, and it also makes you seem more confident. If you're trying to be persuasive, it's a lot better to go slower, which is why if you go back and you watch the video that I'm going to put out on Trump's tweets and George Floyd, I talked very slow, right? That's because I'm trying to like really emphasize a point, be more dramatic, and be more persuasive to my audience. Yeah, just like an interesting little debate thing. It's a sign you're engaged with the conversation. It's all good. Yeah. All right. Well, hey, everyone. It's 3 hours and 10 minutes in. It's 8:05. I think I'm going to call it there. I've literally just talked for like 3 hours straight. And I don't know. I think I'm going to play like some ESO. I might be in my Discord. So like if you want to join and hang out for a little bit. Fortunately, again, like I like being sort of a small enough creator at this point that I can like hang out with the people who follow me. So I'll probably be on there at some point later. So yeah, otherwise, I'm going to leave it there. Thank you for tuning in, and I will talk to you next time. Bye.